Chapter 266, Uncle Returned. After all, Red Leaf Valley Market just opened, and it's a great time to seize market share. Now that the kids are getting older, in a few years they will start cultivation one after another. And then the expenses will increase significantly. If we have a talisman shop, that would mean another stable source of income. Open a spiritual talisman shop. Lu Miaoga paused slightly when she heard this, then nodded and said, "That's doable. With your talisman-making skill, you're already capable of opening your own shop. However, about this matter, you need to give fourth grandma a heads up." Not long ago, Lu Changxing had taken his talisman skills up a notch, demonstrating the prowess of a first-grade top-level talisman master. With such a level of skill, coupled with the Lu family supply channels, sustaining a talisman shop should be no issue. I've already mentioned this to Grandma and plan to talk to her about it more later. Alright, second elder is still waiting for me. Sister Miaoga, I'll head over now, Lu Changxing said. He didn't linger to talk more with Lu Miaoga. After kissing his daughter and wife on their cheeks, he waved his hand and took off. Arriving at the entrance of Jianghu Mountain, he boarded the second elder's spirit boat and set off for Nine Dragons Market. 2 days later, Lu Changxing returned to Nine Dragons Market. As soon as he arrived home, Xia Jiue joyfully brought him good news. "Husband, I think I'm pregnant." 2 months ago, she had broken through from the 3rd level qi refinement to the 4th level. After Xia Jiue reached the 4th level qi refinement and expressed her willingness, Lu Changxing didn't practice contraception anymore. But whether it was bad luck or due to her spirit-nurturing physique, it took so long for Xia Jiue to conceive. "You're pregnant, let me see." Lu Changxing smiled when he heard the news, placing his head against Xia Ziyu's lower abdomen. He immediately confirmed that she was indeed pregnant. "Jiue, you should rest and take good care of yourself at home from now on." Lu Changxing gently stroked her smooth black hair and spoke softly. Even though Xia Jiue only had a 7th grade spiritual root, her spirit-nurturing physique made him quite expectant of their child. He could feel his own spiritual root was almost at the juncture between 6th and 5th grade. Having another child with a 6th grade spiritual root should promote his own from 6th to 5th grade. If they were to have a child with a 4th grade spiritual root like Xia Zhaoyang, that would be a direct leap to success. Yes, of course, Xia Jiue nodded obediently. Thinking about the plan to open a spiritual talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley Market, Lu Changxing went next door to Gao He's house and knocked on the door. "Uncle Lu." The door was opened by a 17 or 18-year-old girl with a delicate visage, dressed in a moon-white embroidered garment. It was Gao He's daughter, Gao Xiaoya. The former little Lolita had grown into an elegant young lady. "Xiaoya, is your dad at home?" Lu Changxing asked. "He's not, Uncle Lu." "Is there something you need from my father?" Gao Xiaoya asked, tilting her head. "It's nothing urgent. Let him know when he gets back that I have something to discuss with him," Lu Changxing said with a smile. "Alright, Uncle Lu. Won't you come in for a cup of tea?" Gao Xiaoya asked politely. "No, I have other matters to attend to," Lu Changxing declined and waved his hand. Gao He only returned home after nightfall. As soon as he got home, he came to inquire about Lu Changxing's business. "Brother Gao, you must have heard of Red Leaf Valley Market, haven't you?" Lu Changxing asked. "Of course, it's the marketplace established by your Lu family of Jianghu Mountain, the Yu family from Bai Lake Mountain, the Wugong Ridge Jing family, and the 100 Birds Lake Bai family," Gao He responded, nodding his head. As a talisman master, he also had his own information channels. Therefore, he was aware of the annihilation of Red Leaf Valley and the subsequent transformation into a marketplace by the 4 major families. "I am planning to open a talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley Market and wanted to ask if you're interested in coming over as the resident talisman master," Lu Changxing got straight to the point. Although he intended to open a spiritual talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley, having managed a talisman shop in Nine Dragons Market for so many years, he knew that it was difficult to run a shop alone. Especially in the initial stages, there are many tasks that require attention. He alone would definitely be overwhelmed. So, he would undoubtedly need to hire help. Having known Gao He for many years, Lu Changxing was aware that aside from his occasional indulgences and pleasures, his character was reliable. A reliable person indeed. So Lu Changxing thought of hiring Gao He to manage the shop for him. The position of the resident talisman master? Gao He heard this and didn't immediately answer, showing a contemplative expression. He was content with living a stable life. With no ambitious aspirations, he only wished to raise his daughter well and live out his life in peace. Currently a resident talisman master at a spiritual talisman shop in Nine Dragons Market, his life was very stable. Heading to Red Leaf Valley Market would surely be less secure than here. If you are willing, Brother Gao, you only need to manage the shop, create some talismans, and occasionally mentor apprentices. I will mostly stay out of the shop's affairs. In terms of salary, it will be increased by 50% based on your current rate, and additionally, in Red Leaf Valley Market, I have a second-order cave mansion with a spirit vein, which I can rent to you at a base price. This will also greatly improve your and Xiaoya's cultivation, Lu Changxing continued. Since he was looking to recruit someone, he had to offer a price that was enticing enough, otherwise, why would someone agree to work for him? With you putting it this way, Brother Lu, I don't have any reason to refuse, Gao He said with a beaming smile that made his face even more prosperous. Just the 50% increase in salary was tempting to him. Adding on the second-order cave mansion, he had no reason to refuse at all. For ordinary loose cultivators, aside from joining a force, they generally had no means of securing a second-order mansion. Chapter 267, Uncle returned. Alright, let's settle it like this. The Red Leaf Valley Market will be open in a few more months, and they'll notify Gao He then. Seeing the other party agree, Lu Changxing also nodded. Okay, no problem. Gao He nodded in agreement. Gao He, how are you doing with superior grade talismans now? Lu Changxing inquired. Gao He had also become a superior grade talisman master. But the specifics, he wasn't too clear on. Although he had chatted with Gao He about talismans over the years, it was not exactly frequent. I have about a 50% success rate with golden light barrier talismans. As for nectar talismans, only a 30% success rate, and for escape talismans, merely 10%. Gao He shook his head and sighed. Hearing this, Lu Changxing immediately spoke out, discussing and offering guidance to Gao He about talismans. After all, the man was considered his own family's resident talisman master. So, spending some time guiding him was not a big deal. Additionally, by doing this, it allowed Gao He to serve him better. 3 months flew by in a blink. During this time, the fourth elder also learned of Lu Changxing's intention to open a talisman shop in Red Leaf Valley. She didn't say much about it, but instead supported Lu Changxing's idea. After all, with his talisman-making skill, it would indeed be a pity to rent out the shop. She soon arranged for another talisman master to preside over the spiritual talisman shop in Nine Dragons Market. This allowed Lu Changxing to stop going there and return to Jianghu Mountain to rest. Jianghu Valley, inside the practice room. Lu Changxing sat cross-legged with hands positioned towards the heavens, cultivating. 7 sharp sword chi swirled around him gracefully, making his skin feel cold. Huff. It's almost 3 to 4 months away from the 9th level energy refinement. Lu Changxing exhaled lightly, concluding today's routine cultivation. He could clearly feel that his spiritual power was likely to reach perfection in a few months, at which point he could challenge the 9th level energy refinement. For him, advancing from the 8th to the 9th level was not an issue, the process was as natural as the flow of water. Leaving the practice room, Lu Changxing went to his study to draw talismans as usual. After creating 1 supreme talisman and 2 superior grade talismans, Lu Changxing went to the courtyard to spend time with his wives and children. Lu Qingshan and Lu Qingzhu could now walk. Lu Qingshan, while possessing a spiritual body, seemed no different from any normal child. If anything, he was just more lively and active. This made Lu Changxing secretly wonder if his son would inherit his mother's personality as he grew up. If he were to become like the second miss in temperament, he would probably bring a fair amount of trouble for his father. At that moment, Lu Changxing received a message. The Red Leaf Valley market was going to open in 10 days. 10 days. Upon hearing this message, Lu Changxing nodded slightly. He sent letters to inform Hong Yi and Gao He about the news. He planned to go there once the Red Leaf market opened. Although the marketplace would not attract many cultivators when it just opened, and it would need some time before the traffic picked up, opening a shop required advance arrangement and preparation. Upon a solemn, hallowed, and eerie high platform. The platform was surrounded by golden flagpoles. The black flags flying from the poles were embroidered with various vivid and lifelike demons. Now, the flags flapped loudly, turning into billowing demonic chi, which caused visions of terrifying demons to emerge. At that moment, the white-haired young man sitting cross-legged on the platform suddenly opened his stunning eyes. They were dark and profound, with a crescent lotus pattern surfacing at his brow. The crescent lotus was blood-red, exuding an evil charm, and wrapped him in a powerful and boundless aura, like a ferocious tiger or dragon. Ketsukadu, Same, Prajnaparamita Same, Ketsukadu Prajnaparamita Same. The white-haired young man abruptly voiced a deep and mysterious chant. The low resonating sound summoned a blood-colored figure with 3 heads and 6 arms behind him to slowly take shape. This blood-colored figure also seemed to chant, causing the voice to grow increasingly eerie and tremendous. It sounded as if countless voices blended together, causing the platform to tremble continuously as the flag's demon submitted to the blood figure with 3 heads and 6 arms. Not bad, befitting my disciple, you have not disappointed me. As he spoke, a youth in a black robe, with aged eyes and a sinisterly handsome face, appeared on the platform. He looked down at the white-haired young man, smiling satisfactorily as he clapped his hands. You once promised me that if I were to establish the Demon Dao Foundation, you would let me return once. Chu Chang'e looked toward the youth before him with a detached expression, his voice somewhat husky. As your master, I will not break my promise. The black-robed youth laughed softly, then called out, Hey Chio. After a short while, a surge of chi that resembled a black serpent came rolling in. It transformed into a muscular man in black armor, his body covered in black demonic patterns, his features deep with evil intent. Hey Chio pays his respects to the ancestor master. The bald man's demonic patterns seemed to move like little serpents, imposing a terrifying sensation. However, upon seeing the black-robed youth, he knelt down with a devout salute as if on a pilgrimage. You will accompany the young master to Jianghu country. The black-robed youth stated indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure gradually faded away into nothingness. Young master, when do you plan to embark for Jianghu country? The bald man, seeing the youth vanish, immediately turned to Chu Chang'e on the platform, an ingratiating smile spreading across his face. At odds with his ghastly appearance, the smile created a jarring contrast. Jianghu country. Chu Chang'e paused slightly, his eyes flickering with an unusual light. His husky voice then declared, Now. Chapter 268, Advanced Draw, Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. _ 10 days later. Red Leaf Valley Market. After its reconstruction into a marketplace, Red Leaf Valley still cultivated its mountains of red leaves and spiritual fields. Because the market had just opened, it was quite desolate. There were only people from the 4 major families and a few other forces. Lu Changxing and Lu Miaoge strolled through the market, familiarizing themselves with the situation. Although the mountains were still covered with red leaves, the interior layout had been reorganized, completely different from its original appearance. The planned layout bore some resemblance to the 9 Dragons Market. It was divided into 4 areas, east, west, south, and north, designated for residential and commercial use, respectively. Shops used by the major families were basically located in the best spots within the commercial area. The location of Lu Changsheng's shop wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. On the commercial street. When purchasing the shop from Hong Yi, Lu Changsheng had also become aware of its price. It was worth roughly 3,000 spirit stones. In a few years, maybe even a few decades, once the market's foot traffic increased, its value could potentially rise substantially. As for Hong Yi's shop, its location was quite ordinary. It was situated on a rather secluded street. One reason was that only shops at this level were still available for external sale. Another was that the Rui Marquis mansion had limited financial resources. They could at most bring out 1,800 spirit stones. While wandering with Lu Miaoge, Lu Changxing received a transmission from Gao He. "Sister Miaoge, I have something to take care of, I need to go over there," Lu Changxing said to Lu Miaoge. "Emicham, go ahead." Lu Miaoge replied, her white dress and gentle demeanor giving her an air of serenity. Suddenly, Lu Changxing went to meet Gao He at the market entrance and brought him to his own shop. This shop wasn't big, barely 200 square meters in size, with a 3-story structure. "Brother Gao, this shop will be in your care from now on," Lu Changxing said to Gao He. "For now, I can supply 3 supreme talismans and some superior grade talismans every month." As for stock and inventory, Lu Changxing explained the shop's essentials to Gao He. Having spent many years in the Nine Dragons market, his experiences hadn't been in vain. He was quite familiar with the operations of a spirit talisman shop. "Brother Lu, this shop isn't owned by the Lu family, it's yours?" Gao He asked in astonishment after hearing Lu Changsheng's words. He had originally thought that Lu Changxing invited him to Red Leaf Valley Market to act as the resident talisman master on behalf of the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain. To his surprise, Lu Changxing had opened his own shop. This left him both astonished and envious. Many Lu's cultivators spend their entire lives in the cultivation world and still may not be able to afford a residence in a marketplace. Most can only choose to return to the secular world to settle down. Even for him, an advanced-level talisman master, buying property in a larger market wasn't easy. A shop like Lu Changsheng's could support 3 generations if Red Leaf Market didn't run into trouble, and that wasn't an exaggeration. "Heh, that's right, the Lu family also has a shop here," Lu Changxing chuckled. "However, this shop isn't owned by the Lus, it's my personal business. Therefore, I won't have much time to manage it, which is why I requested your assistance," he continued, not hiding the truth. He planned to spend his time cultivating in Jianghu Mountain like the 4th elder, accompanying his wife and children. After completing the talisman-making tasks for the Lu family each month and supplying the spiritual talisman shop, he would come to check on the shop and see Lu Miaoge. "All right, rest assured, boss," Gao He said without further questions, giving a respectful bow. After taking a look at the shop and glancing at Lu Changxing, he added, "But this shop needs a name. Why don't you choose one, boss? Since it sells talismans, let's just call it Peace Talisman Hall," Lu Changxing suggested after some thought, coming up with a rather uninspired name. Gao He's mouth twitched slightly. Such shop names were basically cliché. But that's how it was for most shops, except for some major families and powers. They could only build a reputation by slowly accumulating good reviews and growing the business. Subsequently, Gao He discussed the initial preparations for the spirit talisman shop with Lu Changxing. Having been briefed on this by Lu Changxing, he had made ready preparations. Lu Changxing knew that Gao He had put in the effort when he heard this. He had even thought that if it didn't work out, he could ask the Lu family for support. After all, it would be foolish not to use resources that were readily available. Suddenly, Lu Changxing also discussed the second-order cave mansion with Gao He. He had seen the mansion. It wasn't big, just 100 square meters. But for rent, it could fetch 80 to 90 spirit stones a year. Once the foot traffic increased, he estimated it could be rented out for 100 spirit stones. Lu Changxing then rented it to Gao He for a base price of 80 spirit stones per year. "Thank you, boss," Gao He gratefully accepted the offer. He planned to clear a path in the Nine Dragons market and, at the same time, bring over his daughter, Gao Xiaoya. After chatting for a while, Lu Changxing left and went to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. This shop's layout and decorations were similar to those in the Nine Dragons Market's Lu family spiritual talisman shop, only larger. "Changxing, you finished your business?" Lu Miaoge came forward as soon as she knew Lu Changxing had arrived. Apart from being at home, she still maintained a sense of grace and inaccessibility when outside. "Yes, I've finished," Lu Changxing said, nodding with a smile. He shared the details of his discussion with Gao He with Lu Miaoge. This is what being husband and wife was like. It wasn't every day that there were fresh and interesting stories to share. Often, much of the time was spent talking about the little things happening around them. The night deepened. Red Leaf Valley was already quiet, now enveloped in silence. Apart from the guards tasked with patrolling, most had entered the realm of dreams. On the third floor of the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. Inside the simple bedroom, the bed's curtains hung down. The candlelight flickered gently, as if a full moon had sunk into the water, waves gently lapping. After the deed. "Sister Miaoge, how long do you need to break through to the 9th level of energy refinement?" Chapter 269, Advanced Draw, Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. Lu Changxing embraced the warm, soft jade and asked softly, due to the previous assassination attempt and because of her pregnancy and childbirth, Lu Miaoge had only broken through to the 8th level of energy refinement 3 months ago. It should take about 5 or 6 years. Lu Miaoge was still immersed in the afterglow of her cultivation session, her cheeks flushed with a beauty that seemed beyond compare. 5 to 6 years, Lu Changxing heard this and nodded slightly. He understood that at Lu Miaoge's current pace of cultivation, waiting for her to reach perfection in energy refinement and then to attempt foundation establishment would likely take more than a decade. In more than 10 years, by then, maybe I could get a genuine foundation establishment elixir. Moreover, after I reach foundation establishment, I can consider passing on the split sword technique, Lu Changxing thought to himself. Now that Lu Miaoge was his wife, the mother of his children, he naturally paid more attention to her cultivation and foundation establishment. "It's nothing, I was just asking. I want to help you with your cultivation, to reach foundation establishment sooner," Lu Changxing whispered to the beauty before him. Then, capturing her tender lips, they continued their cultivation. Among all his wives and concubines, only Lu Miaoge, who was also at the 8th level of energy refinement, produced the best results when dual cultivating with him. A single session of dual cultivation was almost equivalent to half a month of solitary cultivation. Lu Miaoge's cheeks were flushed, her brows gently curved, her eyes gleaming like water, her teeth biting down on her cherry lips. After spending half a month with Lu Miaoge in Red Leaf Valley Market, Lu Changxing returned to Jianghu Mountain. The distance between Red Leaf Valley and Jianghu Mountain made his travels much more convenient. On the 3rd day after returning to Jianghu Mountain, the maid Jiang Luiyue gave birth to a child. This child did not possess a spiritual root, but at the moment of the child's birth, a system prompt arrived as expected. "Congratulations, host, the number of your offspring has reached 100, you are awarded 1 advanced lottery draw, advanced lottery." Lu Changxing raised his eyebrows upon hearing this. Previously, when he had 50 children, he received a designated draw, which allowed him to choose any category for the draw. He hadn't expected that reaching 100 children would warrant an advanced lottery draw. If the regular lottery is this powerful, won't the advanced lottery skyrocket? At this moment, Lu Changxing couldn't help but feel excited and anticipatory. He immediately rushed to his study to start the lottery draw. "System, I want to draw the lottery," Lu Changxing thought to himself. Instantly, a deep red virtual lottery wheel appeared. It was different from the previous lottery wheels. This wheel had only 4 sections: cultivation technique classics, elixirs, heaven and earth treasures, and spiritual pet treasures. The regular lottery can draw orthodox level cultivation techniques. Could the cultivation technique classics drawn from the advanced lottery be above the orthodox level? And if the pets from the regular lottery are heavenly grade bloodline pets, wouldn't the advanced lottery possibly give true spirit beast cubs? Lu Changxing looked at the advanced lottery wheel in front of him and couldn't help but look forward to it. That feeling of anxious anticipation for the lottery had arisen again. Curious about what reward he would receive this time. "System, draw the lottery." Lu Changxing didn't think too much, took a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. With a mental shift, the brilliant gold light appeared on the advanced lottery wheel and began to spin rapidly. After 5 seconds, the light gradually slowed. Finally, with Lu Changsheng's heart pounding, the gold light settled on the spiritual pet treasure section. Ding! Congratulations, host, for obtaining a heavenly spiritual treasure, 9 treasure jade rui. The reward has been distributed to the system space. The host can check it at any time. A green rui image, inlaid with what looked like 9 stars, emerged from the lottery, will accompanied by a system notification tone. Heavenly spiritual treasure. 9 treasure jade rui. Lu Changsheng, seeing the reward he obtained, was immediately delighted. He hadn't imagined that he would draw a heavenly spiritual treasure. The treasures used by cultivators are categorized from low to high as magic artifact, spiritual artifact, magical treasure, spiritual treasure, and heavenly spiritual treasure. Heavenly spiritual treasure, the supreme treasure that only nascent divine cultivators could wield and use. It was rumored that treasures of this level had their own artifact spirits, with autonomous consciousness and the ability to think. Unexpectedly, through the advanced lottery, he had drawn a treasure of this level. If a heavenly spiritual treasure has an artifact spirit, it should automatically bond with its master just like a pet does. I wonder if the grand old artifact spirit can give me a boost, Lu Changsheng thought hopefully to himself. Then he turned his attention to the heavenly spiritual treasure in the system space. Spiritual treasure, 9 treasure jade rui, grade, heavenly spiritual treasure, description. Before the demise of the divine Lord of 9 heavens, he gathered the essence of all heavenly stars, infused it into the myriad spirits jade, and finally refined it with his 9 great divine abilities. It contains 9 great divine abilities, mysterious and unfathomable, and possesses immense power. Only a person with great magical power can activate it, so the grade is just heavenly spiritual treasure, without detailed grades. Lu Changsheng looked at the information of the treasure and felt surprised. This made him recall something he read in an ancient tome. A heavenly spiritual treasure is fundamentally superior to even the finest of the supreme spiritual treasures. Therefore, it is beyond the categorizations of low, middle, high, and supreme. Regardless of whether it's categorized or not, the 4 words heavenly spiritual treasure are enough. Lu Changsheng didn't dwell too much on this point. With a mental spirit, he extracted the heavenly spiritual treasure from the system space. Immediately, a beautifully crafted, glossy jade rui about the size of a baby's arm appeared. The glossy jade rui shimmered with light, glimmering like galaxies flowing, beauty beyond words. 9 stars of crimson, blood red, golden yellow, sky blue, deep blue, purple, black, dark black, and pure white were inlaid on it, so exquisite that they seemed to emit their own profound mysteries. Chapter 268, Advanced Draw, Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. No artifact spirit? Having just extracted the 9 treasure jade rui, Lu Changsheng had already gleaned a basic understanding of the information about this high-level spiritual treasure. This high-level spiritual treasure was indeed formidable. The 9 treasure jade rui contained 9 great divine abilities, known as the 9 treasures. The first treasure enhanced one's physical strength. The second treasure amplified mana and divine skills. The third treasure boosted the soul and divine sense. The fourth treasure increased speed, enabling one to ride the wind with incredible swiftness. The fifth treasure held healing divine light, repairing the physical body and treating the primordial spirit. The sixth treasure was protective divine light, shielding one from all methods of attack with its divine light. The seventh treasure was sealing divine light, capable of sealing another's mana or one's own aura. The eighth treasure was unsealing divine light, able to break through all sorts of formations and restrictions with a sweep of its light. The ninth treasure was 9-colored disaster light, capable of obliterating everything on its path. As for the first 4 enhancements like vigor, mana, soul, and speed, they could be amplified up to 10 times. While the fifth treasure's healing power could not bring the dead back to life, as long as there was a breath of life, it could generally save and prolong one's life. It could even consume one's origin source to instantly recover from all injuries. With just these effects, the 9 treasure jade rui could be considered a truly precious treasure. Not to mention the latter 4 divine lights, each an unparalleled divine skill. However, this high-level spiritual treasure did not possess an artifact spirit, as Lu Changxing had imagined. According to the system introduction, this high-level spiritual treasure was at the stage where it had just been refined by the God of the Nine Heavens, still yet to pass through the heavenly tribulation and nourish an artifact spirit to form an autonomous consciousness. If one had to categorize it, it could only be considered as an almost high-level spiritual treasure. Without an artifact spirit, this high-level spiritual treasure is just a powerful magical treasure to me, Lu Changxing shook his head and said. It was not too disappointing for him. After all, the system's rewards were too advanced for him at this point, incapable of being transformed into strength quickly. This 9-treasure jade rui was just even more advanced. To him, its essence was about the same as the black dragon magical bead. Luckily, I have the 100 refinements treasure body art, otherwise, having such a heavy treasure, I could only watch and let it gather dust. Lu Changxing let out a breath. He possessed the 100 refinements treasure body art. With this art, he could utilize any magical treasure or spiritual treasure for cultivation, incorporating them into his body to enhance the speed of his 100 refinements treasure body art's cultivation. With the aid of the middle-grade black dragon magical bead, his treasure body technique advanced with incredible speed. In about another year, he could break through to the 3rd level. If he refined a high-level spiritual treasure into his body, his 100 refinements treasure body art's cultivation speed would likely skyrocket. Moreover, once the treasure body technique is cultivated to the 5th level, the treasure bone technique can melt the magical treasure into a life-bound treasure bone. Once a life-bound treasure bone is formed, one can wield the magical treasure's divine effects without the need for the black dragon magical bead's origin nurturing, unlike talisman treasures that have limited power and need to be nurtured again after each use. If I were to melt this 9-treasure jade rui into a life-bound treasure bone, then I'd command the 9 great divine abilities of the 9-treasure jade rui. At this moment, Lu Changxing murmured in his heart, thinking about the treasure bone technique in the 100 refinements treasure body art. The current treasure bone technique could only consume a magical treasure's origin to nurture the bones, thereby exerting part of the magical treasure's power, but each time the power was drained, it would need to be nurtured again. But once the 100 refinements treasure body art was cultivated to the 5th level, and the physical body comparable to a spiritual artifact, he could then melt a magical treasure or spiritual treasure with the skull, sternum, spine, and limbs, the 7 treasure bones, into a life-bound treasure bone. Once the life-bound treasure bone was formed, the magical treasure and treasure bone would meld into one. From then on, the magical treasure's divine effects would become the cultivator's life-bound divine abilities, innate divine abilities. With the system by his side, ordinary magical treasures, which had average power and limited potential, Lu Changxing was not too willing to melt them into life-bound treasure bones. Because once a magical treasure is cultivated into a life-bound treasure bone, that particular life-bound treasure bone can no longer assist in cultivation, nor can it refine other magical treasures into the body. Therefore, one must be extremely cautious with the 7 life-bound treasure bones of the treasure body technique. Otherwise, if one casually melds 7 life-bound treasure bones, and can no longer refine magical treasures to assist in cultivation in the future, then the 100 refinements treasure body technique would become practically useless for Lu Changxing. But this 9-treasure jade rui was different. Its grade was that of a high-level spiritual treasure, with an extremely high potential, and contained 9 great divine abilities. Once he mastered these 9 divine abilities, his strength would receive a comprehensive boost. It's absolutely worth melting it into a life-bound treasure bone. However, my 100 refinements treasure body art is only at the 2nd level. Even with the help of magical treasures for cultivation, it will take a long time to break through to the 5th level. Lu Changxing shook his head and exhaled a long breath, not thinking about such long-term matters. Soon after, he sat cross-legged, wanting to see how long it would take for the 100 refinements treasure body art to refine this high-level spiritual treasure. Even the creators of this cultivation technique from 100 Creation Mountain had never tried to use the Qi refinement realm to refine a high-level spiritual treasure. Having magical treasures refined into the body at the Qi refinement realm, which could then be used to assist in cultivation, was already remarkable. How could a high-level spiritual treasure possibly be used for such refinement? In Zhoushan Mansion City. Chu Chang'e walked through the city. He was dressed in a black wide-sleeved robe. His normally white hair had been dyed black and was held up with a hairpin. With a stern face that, besides seeming quiet and reticent, didn't appear much different from an ordinary person. But he was followed by a tall and muscular bald man in black attire. The bald man radiated a compelling majesty, inspiring fear and trembling in those who looked upon him, deterring anyone from getting too close. Chu Chang'e stopped walking, staring at the dazzling facade of the Chu residence in front of him, taken aback and showing a look of astonishment. Chapter 269, Advanced Draw, Heavenly Spiritual Treasure. _4 He clearly remembered that the last time he returned home, his house was desolate and dilapidated, overgrown with weeds. How had it now returned to the appearance he remembered in his memories? Could it be, the scene I saw before, was it all an illusion? In fact, my parents, they might not be dead. Chu Chang'e's heart skipped a beat. The heart that had long been deadened was now roiling with emotion, and tears almost spilled out. But he didn't step forward to knock on the door. With his foundation establishment Cultivation, he was able to clearly sense that within the residence, there was only one elderly person. There were no other signs of life. So he knew that the derelict state of the Chu residence he had seen before was not any illusion. The residence before his eyes must have been rebuilt for some reason. At this moment, the elder inside the Chu residence, seeing Chu Chang'e standing at the door, couldn't help but ask, "Young sir, do you need something?" "I thought the Chu residence had been raided by bandits." After a moment of silence, Chu Chang'e replied with a somewhat hoarse voice. "Yes, the Chu family. I don't know what sins we had committed. 10 years ago we were raided by bandits, and the courtyard was left desolate, but then last year." The elder spoke with a hint of melancholy. The old man was of an advanced age, rambling on, but he helped Chu Chang'e understand the situation. He learned that a man and a woman had come to erect a tombstone for his parents and had renovated the residence. Jinjin is still alive. Chu Chang'e immediately knew that the woman the elder spoke of was his sister, Chu Jinjin. Knowing that his sister was still alive, his body couldn't help but tremble. But he soon calmed down again, nodded, and left with the bald man. They had not gone far before the two transformed into an escape light, concealing their forms and entering the courtyard of the Chu residence. Looking at the courtyard, which closely resembled the one from his past yet lacked the vibrancy of life, Chu Chang'e seemed somewhat bewildered as he walked around. Then, in the back courtyard, he saw the tombstones and spirit hall. Father, Chu Qingsong, Mother Zhao's tomb. Son-in-law, Lu Changsheng, daughter Chu Jinjin in tribute. Jinjin is married? Chu Chang'e looked at the tombstone before him. The image of his sister, Chu Jinjin, as he remembered her, surfaced in his mind. Knowing that his sister was still alive and now married, he felt joy and relief but also a complex mix of emotions. Time really does fly. It's good that she's married. With Zhenshin's temperament, it would be difficult for her to be alone. I wonder how Jinjin is doing these days. Chu Chang'e stared at the tombstone before him, lost in thought, his expression extremely complex. Young master, if you have living relatives you wish to see, I have a secret technique that can trace them through your bloodline, said the man in black armor next to him, attempting to please him. His obsequious demeanor instantly swept away any semblance of his authoritative presence. Forget it, given my current situation, it's better not to disturb her life, Chu Chang'e said, gently shaking his head. He was acutely aware that he had embarked on a perilous path, one far different from that of ordinary people. If he were to visit his sister, it might disrupt her life. Moreover, he couldn't stay for long on this visit back home. Chu Chang'e then knelt before the tombstone, went to the spirit hall, and offered incense and tribute. Still, I should go have a look, as long as I don't disturb his life, he sighed as he prepared to leave the Chu residence to investigate the true events of the Chu family's past. He still couldn't let go of his sister in his heart. He decided to check on how his sister Jinjin was doing these days. What should I do? Chu Chang'e asked, looking toward the man in black armor beside him. Young master, you only need to give me a drop of your blood, and I can use it to trace the bloodline and perform the secret technique, the man in black armor said. Upon hearing this, Chu Chang'e promptly forced out a drop of bright, clear, scarlet blood. Although in the demon path, there were many techniques that used another's blood to perform spells, even to attack stealthily. But he harbored no such worries. Knowing that his master had certain intentions for him, his life was no longer in his own hands. The man in black armor took the blood and formed hand gestures, turning the blood into a miniature, dark red snake. Young master, this blood-guiding snake will automatically seek out those related to you by blood, said the man in black armor. Let's go, Chu Chang'e said indifferently, nodding his head as he watched the blood-guiding snake, and he disappeared with the man in black armor from the courtyard. 7 days later. Jianghu Mountain. Jinjin has also stepped onto the path of cultivation. Chu Chang'e and the man in black armor followed the blood-colored snake and arrived outside Jianghu Mountain. He immediately discerned that Jianghu Mountain was a cultivation family's residence. He had not expected that his sister would come to the residence of a cultivation family and walk the path of a cultivator. Young master, I sense just now that this is but a small family, inside is only one foundation establishment cultivator, said the man in black armor. Young master, would you like to enter directly or sneak in? He asked, his voice still carrying a fawning tone. Chapter 270, Breakthrough in Cultivation Level, Spiritual Root Promotion. _1 Chu Chang'e and the man in black armor walked through Jianghu Mountain. The two seemed invisible, unperceived by the Lu family's watching disciples. Following the blood-guiding snake, Chu Chang'e arrived at White Deer Mountain Villa. He immediately saw a group of the Lu family's people, picking up their children from school. From the crowd, he instantly spotted a woman in her 20s, with a gentle and beautiful face, wearing a pink and white dress. The woman was holding a child, walking alongside a man in his 20s wearing a blue robe. There were also 8 or 9 children following them, chatting and laughing. Even though it had been 10 years since they last met, Chu Chang'e recognized at a glance that this woman in the pink and white dress, with her gentle and dazzling face, was his own sister, Chu Jinjin. Jinjin. He called out in his heart. But he didn't make a sound, fearing to disturb her peace. Who would have thought, the once little girl has now become a mother? Chu Chang'e watched Chu Jinjin holding a child, chatting and laughing with the man, and talking gently with the children nearby, his deep, silent eyes revealing a mix of happiness, relief, and heaviness, as well as timidity and confusion. He could tell that his sister was doing well here. Not only did her face carry a joyful and blissful expression, but she had also set foot on the path of cultivation. However, her cultivation level was somewhat low, only at the 4th level energy refinement. Then, his gaze shifted to Lu Changxing beside her. He knew this must be his brother-in-law. As for his first impression of his brother-in-law, he found him quite favorable. Firstly because he erected a monument for their parents and renovated the Chu residence. Furthermore, his appearance was handsome, matching his sister well. While speaking with his sister and the children, his demeanor was gentle, showing the attitude of a husband and father. He took a glance at Lu Changsheng's cultivation level. He found that he couldn't discern Lu Changsheng's cultivation level at all. He did not care much about this. After all, the cultivation world had many techniques and treasures to conceal one's cultivation level and spiritual power. Having such a treasure indicated that his brother-in-law must hold a decent status and identity within the family. He didn't use any spells to probe either, lest Lu Changxing sense his presence. Are all these children Zhenchins? Chu Chang'e turned his gaze toward the groups of children beside the couple, his heart skipping a beat. The children were mostly 5 or 6 years old, the oldest no more than 8 or 9. He remembered that it had only been a total of 10 years since he left home. In 10 years, his sister couldn't possibly have so many children, could she? The next moment, he looked carefully. He could feel a blood connection only with the infant Chu Jinjin was holding, as well as with an 8 or 9-year-old boy and a 6 or 7-year-old girl, which made him feel a kinship as their uncle. He knew only these 3 were his sister's children. Seeing there were only 3, he nodded slightly. If she had given birth to 10 children in 10 years, he feared he might have had thoughts of drawing a sword. Only this child has a spiritual root, huh? Chu Chang's eyes fell on the three children to whom he felt related by blood, focusing on Lu Chuanjin. Chu Zhenjin had given birth to 4 children. Among them, the first child, Lu Chuanjin, and the third child, Lu Caizhen, possessed a spiritual root. However, Lu Caizhen was still not of schooling age and was playing at home. I wonder what kind of spiritual root this child has. Chu Chang'e thought to himself. Throughout these years, although he had been constantly forced to cultivate in the darkness, he had also acquired a general understanding of the cultivation world. He knew that compared to the secular world, the cultivation world was even more brutal. A stark world of survival of the fittest, selection of the superior and elimination of the inferior. If his nephew's spiritual root was mediocre, he would face many hardships when he began cultivating as he grew up. Sigh. Chu Chang'e sighed. His heart had become numb and silent over the years. But at that moment, he couldn't help feeling sentimental. He was not only worried about his sister's life but also, by extension, concerned about his nephew's situation. He shook his head slightly, choosing not to dwell further on these thoughts. Aware of his current situation, how could he afford to care about others? Watching Chu Zhenjin and others chat and laugh as they gradually moved away, he closed his eyes. Let's go. Chu Chang'e reopened his eyes, determination shining within them. He turned and walked toward the exit of Qingzhou Mountain. Now that he had seen his sister and knew she was living well, he felt at ease. He was acutely aware of his current circumstances. If he had too much contact with his sister, he would only bring harm upon her. What he needed to do now was to live well, strive to survive, and improve himself. Until he possessed the strength to control his own destiny. No matter how dangerous the future might be, whether it was fortune or calamity, this was his only choice, his only path. Just as his master had said. In this world, only one's own strength is eternal. A breeze blew through, rustling the bamboo, causing a sense of utmost comfort and peace. Chu Zhenjin, who was talking to Lu Changxing, seemed to sense something. She suddenly turned her head, looking in the direction of Chu Chang'e. But there was nothing there. Zhenjin, what's the matter? Lu Changxing asked Chu Zhenjin. Nothing. Chu Zhenjin gently shook her head, dismissing the indistinct feeling. Lu Changxing was unaware of Chu Chang's visit. His daily life continued as usual, cultivating, making talismans, and spending time with his wife and children. There was just one more thing he did, refining the 9-treasure jade rui. Indeed, the 9-treasure jade rui, a heaven-reaching spiritual treasure, proved to be 100 times harder to refine than the black dragon magical bead had been. Even with the profound origin bead in his possession, and spending 1 or 2 hours a day on its refinement, it would probably take 3 to 5 years. Although this period was long, he was very much looking forward to the effects of fully refining the 9-treasure jade rui and integrating it into his body. Chapter 271, Breakthrough in Cultivation Level, Spiritual Root Promotion. Before one realized, 2 months had gone by. Lu Changxing, I think I'm pregnant again. That day, Lu Miaohuan ran over and said to Lu Changxing. Initially, she had said she would only have 1 child, yet now, barely a year after the first child's birth, she was pregnant again. She revealed a look of helplessness and frustration. Did you forget to force it out using your spiritual power? Lu Changxing was slightly taken aback upon hearing the words of the second mistress, before immediately responding. Even if not for the purpose of having children, the two of them often cultivated together. In such cases, if he did not control himself and Lu Miaohuan forgot to force it out, there was a not-so-small chance of getting pregnant. What should I do then? Lu Miaohuan pouted her red lips, and spoke somewhat innocently. If you're pregnant, then let's have it. This will be the last one, Lu Changxing said softly, gently stroking her head with a tender expression. Emichim. Lu Miaohuan nodded heavily. After spending some quality time accompanying the second mistress, Lu Changxing saw that it was already the end of the month. He then left the house and rode the Iron Feather Eagle to the Red Leaf Valley Market. By now, Red Leaf Valley had been open for over 3 months. Yet, the popularity was still average, and the streets looked desolate. In such a desolate state, the business of his Peace Talisman Hall was also very bleak. If it were not for the shop being his own, with the current situation, it would be operating at a loss. After all, not only was the foot traffic low. At this stage, all the major shops were selling at promotional prices of 60 to 70% off for the sake of reputation and business, leaving hardly any profit margin. Lu Changxing walked around his own shop and checked the monthly account book for income and expenditures. Sigh, after deducting all sorts of raw materials and labor costs, we've only made 31 spirit stones in profit. It's not even enough to pay the rent, we actually have to put in money. Fortunately, in a year or two, the marketplace's foot traffic should gradually increase, and profits will recover somewhat. As Lu Changxing looked at this month's accounts, he couldn't help but feel speechless. This made Gao He, who was nearby, somewhat uneasy. Although it's common for there to be no foot traffic when the market first opens, and businesses are promoting to capture the market. But for a shop on the main street to make just over 30 spirit stones in a month. It was indeed embarrassing for him, as the talisman master and shopkeeper who presided over the shop. Lu Changxing waved his hand and did not say much more. He knew this was normal. Because Lu Maiage's spiritual talisman shop on the other side was the same. Due to its location and the franchise brand, their situation was slightly better than his. Shortly after, Lu Changxing visited the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop at Jianghu, where he normally cultivated with his wife, Lu Miaoge, to enhance their bond and cultivation level. 1 month later. Inside the Jianghu mountain practice room, Lu Changxing was sitting in meditation, practicing the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. Suddenly, within the spiritual power sea of his dantian, the energy surged tumultuously. Sword chi encircled him, sharp and vigorous, as dust scattered and an indistinct spiritual pressure filled the air. 9th level chi refinement. Lu Changxing opened his eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. He was not overly surprised by this breakthrough. After all, cultivating the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, he had a rough idea of his own progress in cultivation. And such a breakthrough was natural for him, smooth and seamless. Lu Changxing took a look inside at his 7-colored Dan lake and felt the changes after the breakthrough. The spiritual power inside his body had increased by almost 30%. As his cultivation level broke through, the profound origin bead floating above the Dan lake began to rotate slowly. This magical artifact, too, had its effects enhanced as Lu Changxing's cultivation level advanced. Relying on the profound origin bead, could I now contend with an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator? Lu Changxing pondered, feeling the spiritual power boosted by the profound origin bead. Based on what he had seen in Red Leaf Valley, he felt that his current strength would allow him to withstand a few moves against a foundation-building great cultivator. If he were to employ all his techniques, he might even have a chance at killing a foundation establishment great cultivator. However, Lu Changxing merely entertained the thought without any real intention of pursuing it. Who in their right mind would seek out a fight with a foundation-building great cultivator? He vividly recalled Ancestor Chen's desperate self-destruction, wielding spiritual artifacts and heavenly thunder pearls. If not for absolute strength, both parties would end up wounded in a clash of spells. At this rate, I estimate that in 3 to 5 years, I will be ready to make a push for foundation establishment. With the foundation establishment spirit objects and foundation establishment elixir at my disposal, foundation establishment should be almost a certainty for me. Lu Changxing briefly settled the restless spiritual power and stood up, stretching his limbs and waist. He pushed open the door and stepped out of the practice room. Because the breakthrough had taken a long time, it was now deep into the night. Lu Changxing, looking at the moonlight, felt no urge for late-night moon gazing or sentimental musings. He went to Lu Miao's room. Seeing that she had already fallen asleep, he lifted the blanket and got into bed. Holding the lady in his arms, he too gradually drifted off to sleep. 6 days later, Lu Changxing's 102nd child was born. This child had a spiritual root. It was his 23rd child to possess a spiritual root. With the birth of this child, Lu Changxing felt an indescribable, profound sensation coursing through him. He knew that his own spiritual root had ascended. It had advanced from a 6th grade spiritual root to a 5th grade spiritual root. Lu Changxing was not surprised by this advancement of his spiritual root. Previously, he had sensed that his spiritual root was at the brink between the 6th and 5th grade. If another 6th grade spiritual root appeared, it might prompt an immediate promotion. It had been a while, and with the growth of his child's spiritual root, along with the recent birth, the child probably had a 7th grade spiritual root. Thus, his spiritual root had naturally improved. System. Lu Changxing silently called out in his mind. Name, Lu Changxing. Status, son-in-law of the Lu family of Jianghu Mountain. Cultivation level, 9th level Qi refinement. Chapter 272, Breakthrough in Cultivation level, Spiritual root promotion. Lifespan, 30/156, Talent, 5th grade spiritual root, Gingjin body constitution, medium grade spiritual body, cultivation technique, 100 refinements treasure body art, 7 luminaries great freedom sword scripture, yin-yang harmony technique, immortal beauty technique, spell, 7 luminaries sword glow, 7 luminaries sword shield, 7 luminaries sword escape, items, 9 treasure jade rui, golden light brick talisman treasure, black dragon magical bead, book of malevolent. Curses and fates, life substituting talisman, profound origin bead, 2nd rank puppet, skills, talisman making, 2nd rank, puppet, 2nd rank, spiritual pets, 9 netherhound, peach blossom goo, 6-winged golden silkworm, offspring, 102 out of 107, a 5th grade spiritual root, the same as Sister Maiage's, another step closer to the heavenly spiritual root. Moreover, it also helps me a bit more with foundation establishment. Lu Changxing looked at the spiritual root level on the system's interface and smiled. Looking at the talent column that listed the Gingjin body constitution. As time passed, he could feel that this Gingjin body constitution was also improving in effectiveness as his son, Lu Qingshan, grew up. Spiritual bodies should fully form along with physical development, probably around the age of 11 or 12, Lu Changxing thought to himself. A question suddenly occurred to him. Now that he himself possessed the Gingjin body constitution. If he were to have another child with the Gingjin body constitution, what would happen? Could the Gingjin body constitution advance and become a high-grade spiritual body? And what if the next spiritual body was conflicting with the Gingjin body constitution? Could it cause a conflict of spiritual bodies and problems with his own body? Lu Changxing's mind wandered with these thoughts. After a while, Lu Changxing figured this was something he'd only know after the birth of his 2nd spiritual body child. Looking at the system interface in front of him, Lu Changxing saw his age. He suddenly remembered he had inadvertently turned 30. 30 years old, 9th level energy refinement, this cultivation level, in a cultivation family like Jianghu Mountain, would also be considered a genius. Lu Changxing murmured to himself. Yet, he wasn't overly proud of this. At this age, being at 9th level energy refinement might be considered genius in a family like Jianghu Mountain, but within the immortal sects, it would only be considered average. However, he didn't mind this aspect. After all, his forte was having a solid foundation and being a late bloomer. Having this speed was already good enough. Not striving for the short term, but aiming for lifelong achievements. Besides, starting from scratch as the son of a poor farmer with a 9th grade spiritual root and having a system, he was quite content with his achievements after relentless efforts over just 12 years. There's a saying, at 30, one should stand firm. Now with 7 wives, 11 concubines, 24 maids, and 107 children, I guess I can say I've established something, right? Lu Changxing suddenly thought to himself. Time flew by, and half a year passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Lu Changxing's spiritual root children increased by 2. Both of these children also possessed spiritual roots. This brought the total number of his offspring with spiritual roots to 25, earning him a chance to draw a prize. Unfortunately, his luck with the draw was not very good. He drew a second-rank spirit slaughterer skill from the 100 cultivation skills. The spirit slaughterer skill allowed Lu Changxing to skillfully handle most demon beast carcasses without causing waste or damage during skinning, deboning, tendon extraction, and marrow retrieval. But for Lu Changxing at the moment, this skill was quite superfluous and destined to be unused. After all, he had the skill of talisman making, which meant he didn't need to rely on the spirit slaughterer skill for a living. He never went out to hunt demon beasts for a living, because he did not need to rely on selling their materials. However, among the 2 children that were born, the child of Xia Jiue possessed a 6th-grade spiritual root. This delighted Lu Changxing immensely. After all, among his more than 100 children, there were 25 with spiritual roots. But only Lu Qingshan had a middle-grade spiritual root. The child of Xia Jiue was his second child to have a 6th-grade spiritual root. However, when Xia Jiue was pregnant with this child, Lu Changxing did not let her consume her own origin source to nourish the fetus excessively. Otherwise, Lu Changxing felt that Xia Jiue, who was in the energy refinement middle stage, could have given birth to a child with a 5th-grade or even a 4th-grade spiritual root. But with the precedent set by the mother of Xia Jiue, Lu Changxing would not do such a thing. He could never bring himself to let a child's mother consume her origin source to the point of depletion and death for the sake of childbirth. He also planned not to let Xia Jiue have any more children in the short term and instead to let her rest and cultivate properly. He would wait until she reached the energy refinement late stage to discuss this matter. Even Lu Changxing was thinking, if Xia Jiue broke through to the foundation establishment stage, could she rely on her spirit-nurturing physique to conceive a child with a high-grade spiritual root? There's about a month left until the day of the 10-year agreement. I wonder how Fei Yu is doing. On this day, after Lu Changxing completed his routine cultivation and talisman making, he remembered that there was about a month left until the 10-year agreement they had made. He was also curious about the current situation of Han Lin, Xiao Xia, and Zhao Qingqing, who were cultivating in the Immortal sects, curious about how they were doing after these 10 years, whether the gap was gradually widening. At the same time, he thought about Li Feiyu, who had been out adventuring for so long without any news, and wondered how he was faring. In the blink of an eye, another half-month passed by. Just as Lu Changxing was preparing to go to the Rui County city for a gathering, he received a letter. It was a letter from Li Feiyu. In the letter, Li Feiyu first talked about his own situation, stating that all was well with him. Thanks to the talismans and spirit stones that Lu Changxing had given him, he had also broken through to the 5th-level energy refinement. He was currently exploring a precursor's cave with others and was not sure he could rush back in time for the 10-year rendezvous. Therefore, he had someone deliver the letter in advance. If he did not return in time, he asked Lu Changxing not to worry or miss him. He also urged Lu Changxing to inform Han Lin, Xiao Xia, and Zhao Qingqing about this. Alas, Fei Yu has ultimately chosen this path. Lu Changxing sighed lightly as he read the letter. He had previously guessed that Li Feiyu, by venturing out, would eventually follow a path similar to Xiao Long's, obtaining resources by hunting demon beasts, exploring precursors' caves, and secret realms. Or rather, this was the only way for most loose cultivators to stand out and seize the chance for foundation establishment. But such endeavors came with great risks. After all, it was akin to risking one's life at every turn, and a single encounter with danger or mishap could result in death and a forgotten grave in the wilderness. However, there was nothing Lu Changxing could do to dissuade this. Not everyone can live like him, safely marrying wives and concubines and having children, with the expectation of the great Tao unfolding before them. Nevertheless, Lu Changxing felt that the reason Li Feiyu might not come to the rendezvous was not just because he was held up by matters but also because the gap among the 6 of them had grown too vast. Li Feiyu was once promising in his youth. But 10 years ago, among the 6, it was Li Feiyu who was in the worst situation. Now, 10 years later, Li Feiyu had still spent most of his time in vain. How could his proud nature endure that? Alas, Lu Changxing sighed again, hoping that Li Feiyu was safe and well. Flames appeared in his hand, and he burned the letter to ashes. After informing his wives and concubines, he mounted the iron feather eagle and set off towards Rui County City. Chapter 273, Xiaoxia's request _1 Rui County City. Inside the Lu family estate, Wanxiang Garden. Huff, 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 in the picturesque garden with its cobblestone paths, several martial masters were leading a group of children in martial arts practice, a morning exercise routine. Although these children were young, their movements were extremely agile as they swung their fists and kicked their feet. Wherever there was an issue, the nearby martial masters would immediately correct them, meticulous in every detail. A few of the children, around 10 years old, created gusts of wind with their fists and feet as they moved, signs of their growing strength. A little farther away, Lu Changxing, dressed in a blue robe with a jade-like countenance and a gentle expression, watched the children practicing martial arts. Now, under his arrangements, these children had begun martial arts practice to fortify their bodies. His eldest son, Lu Pingan, due to his diligence in the martial path, had already cultivated internal qi. According to the secular martial arts circles, which divided martial prowess into categories such as unranked, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade, and innate, he was already considered a 2nd grade expert. A 2nd grade expert at the age of 12 was not unheard of in the secular martial arts circles, but it was exceedingly rare. Aside from a few individuals with exceptional talent, only descendants of cultivators could nurture children to such a level. After all, they were raised in lands with a spiritual vein, consuming spirit rice and spirit food. Their bodies contained little impurities. Such children learning martial arts were all seen as martial prodigies. Moreover, after sending these wives and children to the secular world, Lu Changxing still regularly sent them spirit rice. However, such strength of a martial arts 2nd grade expert was still beneath the notice of the system. Lu Changxing checked his son Lu Pingan's panel information through the system. In the strength column, it still displayed a single character, none. Lu Changxing didn't mind this. If in the early days he harbored some hope of improving his own strength through his children's martial practices, now, he did not entertain such thoughts much. He was more interested in them practicing martial arts for self-defense and maintaining good health. "Daddy, how well did I do?" After the morning practice session, Lu Wuyo cheerfully ran over to Lu Changxing, calling out and asking with eyes full of adoration and dependency for her father. "You're the one who always slacks off." Lu Changxing responded with a smile and ruffled his daughter's hair. Then, with a purification art, he turned it into a breeze that dried and cleansed his daughter's sweat-soaked clothes from training. Of course, he didn't play favorites. He did the same for all the children. Witnessing this, the nearby martial masters were filled with reverence. "All right, everyone's tired, let's go have a meal." Lu Changxing patted the children's heads and led them to have breakfast. The breakfast was very rich and nutritiously balanced. After all, this was a time when the children were growing. In this aspect, Lu Changxing never stinted. He also wasn't short on money. After eating, Lu Changxing took Lu Pingan and the other children to the backyard to feed the 9 netherhound. Raised for so many years, the 9 netherhound had grown as robust as a bull. Its mouth full of intersecting sharp fangs and its body covered in jet-black fur that shone like satin. Last year, the 9 netherhound had progressed to a 1st grade middle-stage demon beast. But for Lu Changxing, it meant little. To expect the 9 netherhound to give him a lift was clearly impossible. Unless he was willing to spend a vast amount of resources to cultivate the 9 netherhound and accelerate its growth. But the cost was too great. Lu Changxing, despite having plenty of spare cash, could not afford such expenses. He planned on raising it slowly. In the future, it would serve as his family's guardian spiritual beast, to accompany his children and protect them on their journeys. 6 days later. "Dad, Uncle Hong is here." While Lu Changxing was chatting in the backyard with his wives and children, a little one ran over and exclaimed, "You guys keep playing, I'll head over there." Hearing this, Lu Changxing guessed it might be Xiaoxia, Zhao Qingqing, and Han Lin who had arrived, so he left to greet them. After seeing Hong Yi, the latter indeed confirmed that Han Lin, Xiaoxia, and Zhao Qingqing had arrived and were outside the city. Hearing this, Lu Changxing nodded and went with Hong Yi to receive them from outside the city. As the two approached the city gates, they immediately saw 2 women and 1 man, 3 figures coming their way. It was Xianxia, Zhao Qingqing, and Han Lin. Xianxia was dressed in pale moon white, with long black hair cascading down to her waist. Her strikingly beautiful face had not changed much in the past 10 years. Skin fair as jade, features delicate and elegant, she was breathtaking. But her overall appearance and demeanor had undergone an earth-shattering transformation compared to 10 years ago. Back then, she was characterized by her forthrightness and vivacity. Her face wore a bright smile that was as warm as the spring sun, easily inviting favor from those around her. The current Xianxia, however, had a cool countenance. Her aura was like that of the pure, untouchable moon shining high above, serene, noble, detached from the world. She was someone people would admire from afar, wary of approaching her without due reverence. Lu Changxing, observing Xianxia's transformation, felt somewhat astonished. He was curious about what she had encountered over the past 10 years that had led to such a drastic change. Although she looked similar, she seemed like a completely different person. If it weren't for her presence with Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin, Lu Changxing would hardly be confident that this was Xianxia. Meanwhile, Zhao Qingqing and Han Lin, aside from appearing a few years older and more mature, had not changed much from 10 years earlier. Daoist Xiao, Daoist Zhao, Daoist Han. Lu Changxing did not ponder further but greeted them with a smile and a clasped fist. Hong Yi also seemed surprised by Xiaoxia's change but did not scrutinize further. With an open and natural smile, he clasped his fists and said, "My fellow Daoists, you've been well, I trust." Daoist Hong, Daoist Lu. Xiaoxia and her companions nodded to Lu Changxing and Hong Yi, greeting them in return. They looked at Lu Changxing, their eyes reflecting a similar surprise as they observed his demeanor, much like how Lu Changxing and Hong Yi had reacted to seeing Xiaoxia. Chapter 274. Xiaoxia's request. 10 years had passed, and their appearances and demeanors had all changed more or less. Take Hong Yi, for example, who now wore a purple, luxurious brocade robe and a purple gold crown on his head, and had grown a beard at the corners of his lips. Compared with 10 years ago, the whole person seemed countless times more mature and composed. Yet Lu Changxing still had the appearance of a 20-year-old. His handsome and vibrant face still vaguely reflected the contours of 10 years prior. But his entire being appeared even more ethereal and graceful, refined beyond the mortal realm. Beholding him was like seeing a graceful, flawless beauty, noble and unsullied, like an orchid or a jade tree in spring, bestowing upon others a sense of serenity and detachment. If not for knowing Lu Changxing's situation, they would have believed him if he claimed to be a core disciple of an immortal sect or a descendant of a grand cultivation family, given his temperament and looks. As Xiaoxia approached and saw Lu Changxing, an inexplicable emotion surged within her heart, causing it to suddenly flutter. The supreme forgetful love technique that she was cultivating involuntarily began to circulate. This is, Xiaoxia paused slightly in surprise. She noticed that upon seeing Lu Changxing, her heart, which was as tranquil as the bright moon, began to ripple slightly. After cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique, her heart had become like the moon in the sky, undisturbed by emotions and untrapped by feelings. No matter the event, it was difficult for anything to move her or cause a disturbance within her. However, at this moment, seeing Lu Changxing made her heart flutter, involuntarily initiating the circulation of the supreme forgetful love technique. Could it be, this is the opportunity, the catalyst for my breakthrough? Xiaoxia's eyes, as cold and moving as the stars and the moon, reflected her thoughts. Having cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique, her cultivation level had reached the perfection of qi refinement. Yet due to her state of mind, she had always been unable to break through. Her master Yun Wanshang had given her 3 years. Now, half of those 3 years had passed. She had also realized that she could not break through on her own. She must venture out, temper her heart in the mortal world, and use external forces to facilitate the breakthrough. That was the purpose of her coming down the mountain for this meeting. Thinking of the remaining year and a half, she planned to travel in the mortal realm in search of that breakthrough opportunity. Unexpectedly, she had just left the mountain and met with old friends, which had caused her heart to quiver and the supreme forgetful love technique to activate automatically. Why isn't Li Feiyu here? Where has Brother Li gone? Han Lin, seeing only Lu Changxing and Hong Yi, asked aloud. Feiyu went out for experience last year and has been held up by some matters. He might not be able to make it back in time, so he asked me to apologize on his behalf, Lu Changxing said, bowing his hands. I didn't expect Brother Li to have gone out for experience. Hearing this, Han Lin nodded slightly and didn't say much else. The three of you have had a tiresome journey. I have already made arrangements at the Rui Tower, still the same condensing immortal pavilion as before, Hong Yi said, stepping forward to lead the way. Presently, the five of them walked and talked on their way to the Rui Tower, the condensing immortal pavilion. Please take a seat, Hong Yi said with a cheerful smile after everyone was seated, serving spiritual tea and spirit fruit to the guests. Compared to 10 years ago, this reunion clearly lacked the same ease and familiarity. One reason was that their relationships had only been average to begin with. Having not seen each other for 10 years and with only the occasional exchange of letters, another was that 10 years ago, there were those who livened up the gathering and steered the conversation. But now, with Xiaoxia's cold and fairy-like demeanor, she hardly spoke. And with Lu Changxing, Han Lin, and Zhao Qingxing naturally not being talkative people, and the absence of Li Feiyu, however, under Hong Yi's lead, Lu Changxing, Han Lin, and Zhao Qingxing became actively engaged in searching for topics, gradually warming up and having a harmonious and congenial conversation. In the course of the interaction, Han Lin and Zhao Qingxing mentioned some of the happenings within the Qingyun sect and great events of the cultivation world, while Lu Changxing and Hong Yi spoke of some worldly matters, events within the marketplaces. During this, Lu Changxing also mentioned his brother-in-law, Xia Zhaoyang. Lu Changxing hadn't paid much attention to this brother-in-law. He had only occasionally heard about his sister-in-law Xia Zizhu's brother in her letters. When Xia Zizhu sent letters, he had included a few dozen spirit stones as a gesture. It wasn't much, just a token of consideration as a brother-in-law, a simple investment. Xia Zhaoyang, I've heard of him. I never thought he'd actually be a relative of brother Changxing, Han Lin expressed surprise upon hearing this. Working in the Qingyun sect's artifact refining hall, despite being relatively unknown, he was well informed. Since Xia Zhaoyang possessed a 4th-grade spiritual root and had entered the inner sect and been taken as a disciple by a Foundation establishment elder, he was familiar with him. At this moment, the others also spoke of their recent conditions, which revealed to Lu Changxing that Han Lin had reached the 6th level of energy refinement, and that Zhao Qingxing, having recently exchanged for a high-rank breakthrough elixir from the sect, had broken through to the 7th level of energy refinement with the help of the elixir. This level of cultivation strength made Lu Changxing sigh with admiration. They were truly worthy of being immortal sect disciples. Likewise, Han Lin and Zhao Qingxing were both outer sect disciples of the Qingyun sect. They were also tied up with side jobs and distracted by various skill-related tasks at times. Yet under these circumstances, one had reached the 6th level, and the other had reached the 7th level of energy refinement. One must know, Lu Miaoge, as the young lady of the Lu family of Qingzhou Mountain with a 5th-grade spiritual root, had also only broken through to the 7th level of energy refinement at the age of 29. As for Hong Yi and Li Feiyu, having lower-grade spiritual roots, one was still at the 4th level of energy refinement, and the other had only recently broken through to the 5th level. As for himself, Lu Changxing chose to exclude himself from comparison. After all, he had an advantage. Externally, he claimed to have only recently broken through to the 6th level of energy refinement. Brother Changxing seems to have the most leisurely life, embraced by the family of cultivators, marrying and having children, while steadily improving in both cultivation and the talisman path, Han Lin remarked with a sense of emotion. He had been the closest to Lu Changxing since the beginning. Although they had grown distant, he still felt some affinity for him. I can't compare with your prospects of the immortal path. Lu Changxing waved his hand and chuckled in response. Then, turning to Xiaoxia, who had a cold and celestial appearance beside him, he inquired, I heard that Daoist Xiao has been taken as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal. May I ask how your recent cultivation has been? Chapter 275. Xiao Xie's request. Lu Changxing asked this out of curiosity about Xiao Xie's situation. Additionally, he felt that Xiao Xie seemed to be sizing him up continuously. Over the years, I have been cultivating in stillness, and now I have achieved qi refinement to perfection. This descent from the mountain is also a trial to seek an opportunity for a breakthrough, Xiao Xie said gently, her voice clear, cold, and touching. Hiss. Upon hearing these words, everyone couldn't help but express their surprise, drawing in sharp breaths. Qi refinement to perfection, searching for the chance of a breakthrough. It was clear that she was looking for the opportunity to break through to foundation establishment. Unexpectedly, in just 10 years, Xiao Xie had cultivated to qi refinement perfection and was preparing for foundation establishment. The gap between her and the others could only be described as heaven and earth. Not only were Hong Yi, Zhao Qingqing, and Han Lin surprised, but Lu Changxing was also somewhat astonished. However, Lu Changxing was more bewildered. He remembered that Xiao Xie had only a 4th-grade spiritual root. A 4th-grade spiritual root, even within immortal sects, couldn't possibly have such a fast cultivation speed. Could it be that Xiao Xie possesses some sort of spiritual body? Lu Changxing immediately speculated in his heart. He had a simple reason for such a guess. Xiao Xie was accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal. If it were just a 4th-grade spiritual root, it was highly unlikely to be favored by a nascent soul immortal to become a disciple. At most, she would attract a foundation establishment elder to accept her as a disciple. After all, within the entire Qinyan sect, nascent soul immortals are few in number. Unless it was an earth spirit root or a heavenly spiritual root with truly extraordinary talent, they would not easily accept disciples. Or could it be the practice of a certain cultivation technique? Lu Changxing thought of another reason. He, practicing the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture, knew the significant help a good cultivation method could offer to a practitioner. Without that scripture, which could refine elixir toxicity and ignore minor bottlenecks, his cultivation speed would certainly not have been so fast. Therefore, he conjectured that Xiao Xie was likely also practicing such a technique. But this technique came with side effects. He had read in ancient tomes that many powerful techniques come with side effects. Like masculine becoming feminine, drastic changes in appearance, major changes in character and temperament. Xiao Xie's current appearance, which had changed, made him suspect it was a case in point. Otherwise, how could there be such a dramatic change after just 10 years of cultivation? However, despite his speculation, this was not the kind of thing Lu Changxing would inquire about further. In the cultivation world, one's constitution and cultivation methods are exceedingly private matters. Then let me extend an early congratulations to Daoist Xiao on a successful foundation establishment. Hong Yi immediately picked up his teacup in a daze and said so. When the 6 of them first took part in the Immortal Sect's examination together, he pursued Xiao Xie with feelings of admiration and love. 13 years have passed, and he has achieved some success in the mortal world. Yet foundation establishment still seemed to him an elusive term. But now, Xiao Xie was already preparing for foundation establishment, which left him feeling particularly moved. Wishing Daoist Xiao the opportunity and success in foundation establishment. We also wish Sister Xiao success in foundation establishment. We also wish Sister Xiao success in foundation establishment. Lu Changxing, Zhao Qingqing, and Han Lin also raised their glasses to offer congratulations. Thank you. Xiao Xie's cool gaze softened somewhat as she raised her glass to drink with everyone. But her eyes involuntarily fell upon Lu Changxing once again. She discovered that whenever she looked at Lu Changxing, her heart experienced a faint, almost imperceptible flutter. If not for the operation of the supreme forgetful love technique, even Xiao Xie herself might think it was an illusion, hard-pressed to grasp this emotional flutter. To break through, do I really need to go through this emotional tribulation? Xiao Xie murmured to herself as she looked at Lu Changxing. She thought of her master's teachings. To truly cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique to a state of heartlessness and forgetfulness, one must experience emotional tribulation to comprehend the essence of the supreme forgetful love. Although she didn't know why, facing Lu Changxing, why such a flutter arose in her heart. But the spiritual mechanism within told her that her chance for a breakthrough might well lie with Lu Changxing. Thinking that her opportunity for a breakthrough fell upon Lu Changxing, requiring an emotional tribulation with him, her heart was somewhat in disarray, clueless. Over the years, she had been cultivating at Qingyun sect, with little understanding of matters of affection. She had only glimpsed such matters in books a few times. What's more, after practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, her heart had grown more indifferent, almost forgetting affection. Now, to face an emotional tribulation, she indeed didn't know how to proceed or where to start. Didn't I come down the mountain just to find this opportunity? Now that the chance is before my eyes, why should I hesitate? At that moment, Xiaoxia's conflicted heart became resolute. When she initially chose to practice the supreme forgetful love technique, she knew it was a path of no return. She understood that without the mindset of hearing the way in the morning and being ready to die in the evening, her progress in life would be halted, with no hope for the great Tao. Now that the opportunity was right before her, it was naturally not to be missed. Moreover, from the recent chat, she had also learned that Lu Changxing had numerous wives and descendants and rich experience in matters of affection. Perhaps it was for that reason that her breakthrough chance was connected to Lu Changxing. Soon after, Xiaoxia gradually began to speak and joined in on some of the group's topics of conversation. Daoist Hong, Daoist Lu, you who cultivate within the turmoil of the mortal world and tainted with the breath of mortal concerns, it may affect your cultivation. However, if you temper your purity amidst the mortal world, it will assist in cultivation, mindset, and overcoming bottlenecks. When the conversation turned to cultivation, Xiaoxia spoke out, providing a few suggestions on their cultivation. She often had guidance from her nascent soul master and practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, which focuses immensely on mindset, hence she had many insights into this matter. Thank you for the guidance, Daoist Xiao, Hongyi said, visibly moved by the honor. Thank you for the guidance, Daoist Xiao. Chapter 276, Xiaoxia's request _4 Lu Changxing also bowed slightly, roughly understanding that this concept was not far off from his own initial thoughts. It's not about guidance, just a few suggestions, he said. Although Xiaoxia's visage was cold and detached, like a fairy from the moon palace above the 9 heavens, her words carried no arrogance and were very gentle. Thus, with Xiaoxia's participation, the atmosphere of the conversation became even more harmonious. Especially in the aspect of cultivation, Xiaoxia, a fairy who had achieved perfection in qi refinement, often illuminated the path for others with just a few words, leading to great epiphanies and gains. This also made Lu Changxing realize the importance of companionship within wealth, companionship, law, and land. In the lengthy process of cultivation, nearly everyone would face some difficulties and doubts. If one were to work in isolation, it would be hard to get far. But with a mentor and a group of like-minded Daoist friends to exchange thoughts with, things would be much better. During the conversation, Xiaoxia also occasionally asked Lu Changxing about some matters and questions of everyday life. This was also her reason for engaging in the conversation and chat. From Lu Changxing, she saw the opportunity for her own breakthrough. However, she couldn't directly bring up emotional tribulations or matters of cultivation. She needed to observe and understand Lu Changxing's situation first. After all, emotional tribulations could harm oneself and others if not handled well, and affect others. Although her emotions had gradually become indifferent, she wouldn't become cold-hearted just for the sake of cultivation. Lu Changxing was somewhat surprised by this concern. But hearing that Xiaoxia's descent from the mountain was mainly for mortal heart tempering, he didn't mind. After all, they had all experienced many worldly affairs. However, Xiaoxia and her 2 companions had always been cultivating in immortal sects and rarely dealt with mundane chores. There is no feast that doesn't come to an end in this world. Seeing that the sun was setting, everyone concluded the gathering and bid each other farewell. Zhao Qingqing mentioned that she had a mission to do. And Han Lin was heading home to visit his relatives. Lu Daoist, I have descended the mountain to wander the secular world in search of opportunities, she said. But I am not very familiar with many worldly and cultivation world matters, and I have no specific destination in mind. May I ask you to take me with you for a while, if possible? She asked. Before departing, Xianxia didn't leave immediately but turned to Lu Changxing and spoke. She was clad in white robes purer than snow, her complexion cold and peerless, like the bright moon in the sky, calm and indifferent, with an aura of otherworldliness. Lu Changxing was slightly taken aback upon hearing this. However, from their recent conversation, he knew that Xiaoxia's descent was for mortal heart tempering and to break through foundation establishment. Such a request didn't seem abrupt to him. I usually just travel between Rui Prefecture, Jianghu Mountain, and the marketplace. If Daoist Xiao temporarily has no destination, I am certainly willing to take her along for the journey, Lu Changxing said after a moment's consideration. As a disciple of an immortal sect and moreover, a disciple of a nascent soul immortal, Lu Changxing naturally wished to maintain a good relationship. Just taking her along for a part of his journey, as far as he was concerned, was not a troublesome matter, so he agreed without hesitation. Whether or not it bore fruit, he would still be owed a favor by her. The favor of a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from an immortal sect also counted as a connection and backing. Especially since his Jianghu mountain was under the jurisdiction of the Qingyun sect. Thank you, Lu Daoist, Xiaoxia said, her cool eyes revealing a hint of warmth, like a night blooming Sirius unfolding. I've always been in the secular world and have some understanding of the cultivation world. Why didn't you ask me? Hong Yi remained silent on the side but couldn't help feeling a tinge of sourness in his heart. Chapter 277, My Cultivation with the Fairy. _1 Under the envious gaze of Hong Yi, Lu Changxing left with Xiaoxia. I wonder how Daoist Xiao plans to travel on this trip. Lu Changxing asked Xiaoxia. Since he had agreed, he naturally wouldn't just let the other stay at his home or in the marketplace without caring for her. He ought to show some hospitality as a host. To travel in all directions, observe all life, amidst the tumult of the mortal world. Xiaoxia said softly. Her words were not entirely empty. Indeed, to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique truly required such experiences. However, she had skipped this step by using the red dust elixir. But the red dust elixir was, after all, an external object and had not brought her mind to a state of complete perfection. All life, the chaos of the mortal world. Lu Changxing nodded thoughtfully. He felt that the cultivation technique practiced by the other must be no simple matter. After all, ordinary cultivation techniques like the returning origin technique and Changchun technique have no requirements in terms of mental state. Only cultivation techniques of the exquisite level and above have such requirements. This is also why the more advanced the cultivation technique, the harder it is to practice and the higher its threshold. I wonder if Daoist Lu has any suggestions. Xiaoxia asked with a calm and clear expression. Lu has no particularly good suggestions, but in the coming days, I can accompany Daoist Xiao to walk and see this mundane world. Later, we can also go to the cultivation marketplace for a visit. If Daoist Xiao wishes to hunt demon beasts or explore some cave heaven's secret realms, I am of too low a cultivation level to be of help, Lu Changxing said. In the cultivation world, many people facing bottlenecks choose to hunt demon beasts or explore secret realms. By tempering themselves between life and death, comprehending the great terror within it, and stimulating their potential, they seek to break through their limitations. Although Xiaoxia did not share this situation, he still had to say this up front. Thank you for the trouble, Daoist Lu, Xiaoxia said, nodding slightly. Then, she looked toward Lu Changxing and asked, as ripples crossed her calm eyes, Daoist Lu, your youthful appearance, is it because you practice wood or water elemental cultivation techniques? She was still unaware of why her heart fluttered in front of Lu Changxing, prompting the imperceptible love technique to activate automatically. But looking at Lu Changxing's handsome and youthful features, she couldn't help but wonder if it was related to the cultivation technique he practiced. The change in Lu Changxing's appearance and temperament was indeed dramatic. 13 years had passed. She had almost forgotten what Lu Changxing used to look like. Yet she faintly remembered that he was once unremarkable in a crowd. But now, even by her standards, she had to admit that Lu Changxing was incredibly handsome. Not just handsome. His skin, physique, and temperament were all in perfect harmony, beyond reproach. One would feel at ease and a natural fondness looking at him. Xianxia naturally knew that many wood and water elemental cultivation techniques included effects that preserved youth and beauty. But in the qi refinement realm, ordinary cultivation techniques absolutely could not achieve the effect that Lu Changxing had. Indeed, I am but a 9th grade spiritual root, so I chose to practice a wood elemental life-nourishing cultivation technique. As for preserving youth, I have also taken some elixir medicines for that purpose, Lu Changxing said, without a blink or a quickened heartbeat. He had become quite adept at such talk. And because he cultivated the immortal beauty technique and was affected by the peach blossom goo, his appearance and temperament did indeed seem like someone who practiced wood elemental techniques for preserving beauty. However, Xiaoxia's inquiry also made him more vigilant. He wondered if the fairy Shiyu could see something in him. After all, he was very aware of the changes in his own appearance and aura. If someone was observant enough, they might notice something. Therefore, he always used a treasure to conceal this aura in his daily life. Otherwise, with many years of cultivating the immortal beauty technique and the effects of the peach blossom goo, just walking down the street would be enough to captivate mortal women with a single glance. It even had a considerable effect on cultivators. I had no idea Daoist Lu was so concerned with his appearance, Xiaoxia said with a slight nod and a tinge of teasing in her voice. She realized that when she was with Lu Changxing, her state of mind was no longer as undisturbed as usual, like the 9 heavens bright moon, free of ripples. This made her aware that she could use this to temper her own mindset. Since we are cultivating immortality, we should indeed have the appearance of cultivators. After all, with my talents and abilities, I have no hope for the great Tao in this lifetime, so I can only focus on such things, Lu Changxing said casually. In the path of cultivation, what one fears is the loss of confidence. If Daoist Lu retains a thread of belief, there will surely be a glimmer of hope, Xiaoxia said to Lu Changxing. I have taken your lesson to heart, Lu Changxing said courteously with a slight bow, acknowledging her good intentions without being stubborn about it. Then the two walked and talked together as they approached the Lu family mansion. Daddy. In front of the mansion doors, Lu Shila sat on a small stool, eating a candied haw. Seeing Lu Changxing return, she immediately got up and excitedly shouted. Then, the little girl's gaze shifted to Xiaoxia and she asked, Daddy, is this the new auntie? Fairy auntie, hello, my name is Lu Shila, the little girl said, looking adorably at Xiaoxia with her crisp voice. Ahem, this is Daddy's friend, you can call her Aunt Shiyu, Lu Changxing said, coughing lightly after hearing his daughter's words. He didn't blame the child for speaking out of turn. Then he turned to Xiaoxia and said, Please do not take offense, Daoist Xiao. No worries, your daughter is very cute, Xiaoxia shook her head slightly. Despite her usually cold and proud expression, her eyes and voice were gentle. Gracefully smoothing her moon-white dress, she crouched down to admire Lu Xiao's charming stance and asked softly, Little sister, how old are you this year? Chapter 278, My Cultivation with the Fairy. I'm 10 years old this year. Lu Shila bit off half of her candied hawthorn on a stick in one bite. Then she offered it to Xiaoxia. Auntie Shiyu, Daddy said when guests come over, we should treat them well, so I want to treat you to candied hawthorn. Xiaoxia was slightly taken aback. She couldn't help but think back to her own childhood. Once upon a time, she, like the little girl in front of her, had a lively face and loved to eat candied hawthorn. Her eyes curved into a smile, and a gentle look appeared on her face. She opened her enticing, rosy lips and took a bite from the half-red fruit on the little girl's stick. Really delicious. Xiaoxia touched Lu Xiao's head and said, her quiet state of mind rippling slightly. This reinforced her certainty that Lu Changxing was her chance to break through delusions and advance her state of mind. A glowing, moon-white jade pendant appeared in her hand, which she handed to Lu Shila. This is a gift from your auntie. Lu Shila did not accept it immediately but looked toward her father. Since it's a gift from Auntie, you should keep it, Lu Changxing spoke. He could tell that this was not an ordinary jade pendant, it was a spirit jade. As for its value, he couldn't discern it at a glance. But since it was for his child, he didn't decline it. He also knew that by giving a gift to his child, Xiaoxia was expressing her gratitude for bothering him. Thank you, Auntie Xiao. The little girl gleefully accepted the jade pendant. She saw that the jade pendant was translucent and sparkling, very pretty, and she liked it very much. She then talked to Xiaoxia even more warmly, asking if Xiaoxia had eaten and if she would like to go out and play. In the face of the little girl's enthusiasm, Xiaoxia did not decline and went with the flow. Seeing this, Lu Changxing didn't say anything. He just let his daughter take her out for a chat and a walk. What exactly is the situation with this Xiao Daoist friend? Watching Lu Shila taking Xiaoxia away, Lu Changxing narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. From their conversation along the way, he was almost certain that there was something off about Xiaoxia. Asking him for company was definitely not as simple as she claimed, just wandering the mortal world with no particular destination in mind. She must have some kind of purpose in mind concerning him. He believed that Xiaoxia's descent from the mountain was indeed to wander the world, tempering her heart in the mortal realm, looking for an opportunity to break through. But to say she had no destination and asked him for company felt far-fetched to Lu Changxing. After all, as a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from the Qingyun sect, how could she have no destination when going out for training experiences? She would definitely have had someone plan her journey, or even have company. Moreover, he felt that Hong Yi might be more suitable than himself for this kind of wandering temperament. This reason felt strange to Lu Changxing but was, at most, passable. But along the way, Lu Changxing had been observing Xiaoxia closely. He noticed that Xiaoxia's gaze often lingered on him. And he keenly perceived that her eyes and demeanor were changing. This change was subtle, and he couldn't describe it exactly. If he had to say, it was that she was not so cold, not so indifferent anymore. Today, when he and Hong Yi went to meet the three of them, he saw Xiaoxia's first glance and noticed the cool, holy aura about her. Like a fairy from the heavens, calm and indifferent, unapproachable. It was still the case when they arrived at Rui Building. Only after a long conversation did Xiaoxia's indifference gradually recede a bit. At that moment, Lu Changxing realized that Xiaoxia was sizing him up but didn't think too much of it. After she proposed that he accompany her, Lu Changxing became more cautious, so all along the way, by observing, he could confirm that Xiaoxia must have some purpose for him. Wait a minute, when she's with me, her expressions and attitudes change. Could this be? Lu Changxing's mouth twitched. He suddenly felt like it might be akin to a goddess showing interest in someone, only then letting go of her usual aloofness. Although I'm quite charming now, it couldn't be this easy, Lu Changxing stroked his chin. He was someone with a fair sense of self-awareness. He knew well that his charisma could be quite lethal to the opposite sex. But it was unlikely to make Xiaoxia, a fairy of her stature, fall head over heels and take the initiative to throw herself at him. Could it be? A flash of enlightenment struck Lu Changxing's mind. His mental spirit stirred, tuning into the peach blossom goo's spiritual essence within his forehead. He wanted to see if this thing was once again stirring up romantic fortunes for him. After all, his relationship with Xiaoxia was nothing extraordinary. Now that she had come down to wander the mortal realm, with such an unusual behavior, he couldn't help but speculate if romantic fortune was at play. Buzz, 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 a faint activity arose from the peach blossom goo between his brows, conveying a sense of awareness. As if to tell Lu Changxing, it was indeed about romantic fortune. Good heavens! Receiving this feedback from the peach blossom goo, Lu Changxing inwardly exclaimed in surprise. Understanding that Xiaoxia's abnormal behavior was indeed related to romantic fortune, he was at a loss for words for a moment. But it also eased his mind quite a bit. Knowing that Xiaoxia's request to accompany him carried no ill intent, no ulterior motive. Nevertheless, this romantic fortune is not so easy to deal with, Lu Changxing took a deep breath and exhaled softly. To say he harbored no thoughts about Xiaoxia would be impossible. After all, this fairy Xiao was not only exquisitely beautiful but also possessed a fourth-grade spiritual root. She even had some kind of spiritual body. If she were just an ordinary inner sect disciple of the Qingyun sect, that would be one thing, with some hope of a connection. But she wasn't just any disciple from the immortal sects. She was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal. With such status and identity, if he were to impregnate her and have children, chances are it would bring trouble. After all, being accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal implies exceptional talent, and she would be entrusted with high expectations by the immortal sects, fully devoted to her cultivation. Chapter 279, My Cultivation with the Fairy. If I end up having several children, that would delay the prime of my early years. Qingyun sect might, for the sake of letting their disciples focus on cultivation and sever worldly ties, just sever me instead. By then, what was supposed to be a streak of romantic luck would turn into a calamity. So Lu Changxing was very clear in his heart that a woman like Xiaoxia, he currently could not resist. Meanwhile, under the guidance of Lu Shila, Xiaoxia met the other wives, concubines, and children of Lu Changxing. She knew that Lu Changxing had married numerous wives and concubines, and had many children. But when she actually saw so many wives and children all at once, she still felt a bit surprised. However, she didn't know that these 20-plus children were only a small part. After separating from Lu Changxing and spending some time chatting and playing with Lu Shila and a few children, Xiaoxia found her mindset gradually returning to tranquility and indifference. She reverted to her usual state of the supreme forgetful love technique. Is it really so? Xiaoxia murmured to herself, her eyes clear as water, detached and calm as she looked into the distance. She was almost certain that only Lu Changxing could help her see through illusions and break through to the next realm. As for how to see through them, she had some idea in her mind. When she was by Lu Changxing's side, her mental state was affected, causing the supreme forgetful love technique to operate automatically. If she could be unaffected in any way, keeping her heart tranquil and detached no matter what, she thought that would be seeing through the illusions and achieving a great state of mind. However, she still needed to continue to confirm this. In this manner, Xiaoxia stayed at the Lu residence. Lu Changxing had planned to return to Jianghu mountain after the gathering, but due to Xiaoxia's presence, he changed his plans. He spent his time, taking Xiaoxia to wander around Rui Prefecture, observing the so-called afflictions of life and the chaos of the red dust. Lu Changxing himself didn't know what these afflictions and chaos specifically entailed. And Xiaoxia couldn't explain clearly either. So, considering that she came from a literary family and had entered Qingyun sect for cultivation at the age of 15, he decided to show her some of the suffering of life, the hardships of the lower class, like the women who were forced into brothels. The roadside vendors in the streets and alleys, the roughnecks, the beggars with disabilities. The dock workers who labored in hard and toilsome jobs. The tea houses, the wine lodges, the restaurants, patrons of all different stripes. The gangs of the Jianghu, killing and fighting over interests. One day, Lu Changxing took Xiaoxia to a village in Rui Prefecture. It was a very poor and backward village. Yellow earth facing the sky, the mud roads pitted and uneven. Fields lined the sides of the road. The crops in the fields had been completely harvested. But one could still see some emaciated and frail farmers in ragged clothing, with children, carrying baskets on their backs, picking up the grains missed during the harvest in the fields. Among them were some women who had just given birth, carrying infants who were crying for food, with faces of sheer exhaustion. When they saw Lu Changxing and Xiaoxia, fear and humility showed in their eyes, with stiff, ingratiating smiles. Sigh. Lu Changxing sighed deeply at the sight. He did not know how Xiaoxia's state of mind had been these days. But the hardships of this world genuinely made him feel a heavy heart. He felt somewhat relieved, apprehensive, and panicked. Fortunate to possess a spiritual root, he had initially obtained a celestial fate. He was able to go to Qingyun's sect to participate in the Immortal sect's examination. Otherwise, a peasant boy like him, even if he awakened his memories and had a system, would still face great difficulties. It would take an unknown amount of time, energy, and effort to struggle up from this lowly position. Xiao Daoist, have you gained anything in these past few days? Lu Changsheng sighed lightly and asked Xiaoxia. Seeing all the hardships made him cherish his current life even more and gave him the motivation to keep striving. All living beings suffer, Xiaoxia said softly. These days, she had seen much with Lu Changsheng, and her heart was deeply touched, reaping no small gains. But she could feel that these were not greatly helpful for her own breakthrough. The main focus was still on Lu Changsheng. However, through the days of being together, Xiaoxia's heart had also sunk into the influence of Lu Changsheng. Whenever they came into close contact, Xiaoxia felt herself enveloped in a spring breeze that swayed her mental spirit, prompting the supreme forgetful love technique to activate. But she also realized that just this was not enough, not sufficient for her to see through illusion, for her mental state to break through. She knew in her heart that she needed to go further with Lu Changsheng. Only by experiencing the so-called love trial could she truly refine her mental state, achieve great enlightenment, and see through illusion with the supreme forgetful love. Lu Daoist has worked hard these past few days, Xiaoxia looked at Lu Changsheng and said. Her voice was no longer so cold, but much gentler. Soon after, the two returned to Rui Prefecture to prepare for their visit to the Cultivation marketplace the next day. Night fell. Because they were leaving tomorrow, Lu Changsheng naturally spent a good time with his wives and concubines. Meanwhile, Xiaoxia sat cross-legged in her room. Her mind was in turmoil, she couldn't fall asleep or enter a state of cultivation. Love trial. Xiaoxia understood that she had been refining her mental state and seeing through illusion with the help of Lu Changsheng. Yet, at the same time, these days had also made her troubled by the cage that was Lu Changsheng. Although her mental state had improved, she had sunk deeper and had to rely on the love trial for great enlightenment. She operated the supreme forgetful love technique and suppressed her distracting thoughts. She stepped out of her room, her skirt fluttering, landing on the roof, and quietly gazed at the bright moon in the sky. The moonlight spilled over her, bathing her moon-white dress and flawless body, making her even more immaculate and noble, like the Guanghan fairy in the Moon Palace. The gentle night breeze lifted a corner of the moon-white dress, revealing the fairy's smooth, round legs, like ivory-white jade without an ounce of excess flesh, naturally perfect, unrivaled in grace and beauty. The wind also lifted the fairy's black hair. Strands of black hair and the moon-white dress swayed in the wind, dancing with the breeze, reflecting the owner's current mood and state of mind. Her bright, moon-like eyes gazed absently at a courtyard in the residence. Phew. Xiaoxia took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She knew that without a mental realization, she would never be able to refine the supreme forgetful love technique. Immediately, a look of determination appeared in her eyes as she floated towards Lu Changsheng's courtyard. She was ready to tell him directly that she needed to experience the love trial to completely see through illusion. And not just to casually observe the myriad aspects of the world, amid the muddled and tumultuous mortal life. Chapter 280, Xiaoxia, so this is the love tribulation. _1 above the pitch-black night sky, a silver moon hung high. Its faint moonlight cascaded onto the pavilions and towers of the Lu family estate, as if draping them in a layer of silver gauze. The entire Lu family estate was engulfed in darkness and silence, the only exception was a courtyard within the inner house, still brightly lit. In the glow of frost-like radiance, a figure clad in white, resembling the celestial fairy of the bright moon above, drifted towards this courtyard, her sashes fluttering in the night breeze. Before even alighting, Xiaoxiu, like the Guanghan fairy of the Moon Palace, suddenly heard a plaintive sound, sorrowful yet enchanting, filled with 1,000 graces. The sound caused Xiaoxiu's exquisite features to slightly startle, and her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. This hastened pulse speeded the practice of her supreme forgetful love technique. What sound is this? Xiao Shiyu furrowed her pretty brows, somewhat perplexed in her heart. Why did such a simple sound cause such a throb within her? The supreme forgetful love technique ran its course, suppressing this inexplicable emotional pulse. She then followed the sound into a room within the courtyard. The shadows reflected by the window allowed her to instantaneously guess what was happening inside. This made her heart start thumping again. She realized her behavior was inappropriate. Her arrival was ill-timed. But a tremor of excitement surged within her, a tantalizing sensation, compelling her to channel a sliver of spiritual power into her beautiful eyes and peer through the window. Inside the chamber, she saw several Lu family ladies she had met during the day with Lu Changxing. In an instant, Xiao Shiyu felt as if struck by lightning. Her stunning face instantly flushed with crimson, almost letting out an alarmed cry. This single glance brought an unprecedented and intense impact to Xiao Shiyu. The Dao heart that had just been calmed by the supreme forgetful love technique exploded at this moment. Her Dao heart shuddered, and the supreme forgetful love technique nearly failed, causing her delicate body to momentarily weaken. At the age of 15, she had entered the immortal sex, embarking on a single-minded path of cultivation. Though she had heard of the matters between men and women, and had read some relevant books, she was still naively ignorant. Such scenes were foreign to her. Let alone such stimulating and shocking imagery. Under the moonlight, Xiao Shiyu's skin shone like luminous jade, reflecting with the cool moonlight. Her serene and holy visage, usually as cool as the 9 heavens' bright moon, was now flushed like the rosy dawn, a beauty beyond compare. Her emotions rose and fell tumultuously, leaving her dazed and at a loss. Could this be the emotional trial to endure? Xiao Shiyu bit her lip lightly, the supreme forgetful love technique running at full speed, suppressing the roaring tides within her heart. Just now, the shock of the imagery she witnessed caused her heart to accelerate and her body to go weak. But simultaneously, the supreme forgetful love technique also spun wildly. The robust and impermeable barrier at her bottleneck seemed to subtly loosen at this moment. She faintly realized what her emotional trial was. Before this, she had only known that she must endure an emotional trial. That trial fell upon Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing was the opportunity for her breakthrough. But as for the specifics of the emotional trial, she herself was unclear. Because the word emotion is too broad. It could be familial love, friendship, romantic love, or the affection between a man and a woman. And each of these emotions can be divided into many types. In this moment, she vaguely understood. It was about the emotions between a man and a woman. The emotions that include desire between a man and a woman. What she needed to do was suppress emotions, forget desires. Thus, to know emotions yet forget them, to have emotions yet remain detached. Upon realizing her emotional trial, Xiao Shiyu's eyes, as pure as the bright moon, flickered indecisively, trembling slightly. Not only was her heart in disarray, but her mind was also in chaos, feeling lost and dazed. And at the same time, inside the courtyard room, the diligently busy Lu Changxing acutely sensed a spying presence. He frowned slightly. Although his estate lacked a great formation for protection, there were protectors patrolling the outer estate, and a 9 netherhound guarding the inner estate. In the mortal world, it would be extremely difficult for any master to infiltrate. His gaze pierced through the doors and windows, looking outside. He immediately spotted a white silhouette as ethereal as a fairy. Xiao Shiyu? Lu Changxing looked at the white silhouette, somewhat surprised. He wondered what business the fairy, Shiyu, could have with him in the dead of night. Not cultivating or sleeping at night, did she come to chat or share her heart? However, seeing that the eavesdropper was Xiao Shiyu, not some malevolent figure, Lu Changxing couldn't help but feel reassured. Yet this moment of inaction caused his wife, Lu Lanshu, to suddenly feel abandoned. Her elegant features from the daytime, now flush and bewitching, looked back at her husband. Her half-lidded eyes brimming with allure, her voice soft and sultry, she asked, "My lord, what is it?" The 3 other wives also turned their gaze towards Lu Changxing. "It's nothing." Lu Changxing, noting Xiao Shiyu hurriedly departing as soon as he looked out, didn't dwell on it further. Chapter 281, Xianxia, so this is the love tribulation. Xianxia murmured to herself. Without realizing it, she reached out to touch her cheek, which was slightly warm. She didn't even know what had just happened to herself. Was she bewitched? She was clearly aware of what Lu Changxing was doing. And yet, she still stole a glance. If I could completely control and suppress this emotion, perhaps that would be the time when my state of mind reaches completion and I can see through illusions. As she practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, Xiaoxia's emotions gradually stabilized. But the thought of having to completely control these emotions made Xiaoxia sigh quietly. She looked up at the bright moon hanging in the night sky through her window. Somehow, the scene she had just witnessed appeared again before her eyes. It caused her freshly calmed heart to flutter slightly. Xiaoxia did not dispel the embarrassing image from her mind. Instead, she chose to confront it directly. And even, tried to imagine herself in it. Because, for her, it was also a way to temper her state of mind. If she couldn't even control such emotions, how could she talk about transcending the emotional tribulation and seeing through illusions? It was unclear how much time had passed. Xiaoxia found she could now look at the scene without any perturbation. Face the image that challenged her Dao heart. By then, daylight had come. Xiaoxia stood up, straightened her moon-white dress, and applied a cleansing technique to herself. She prepared to find Lu Changxing and have a frank discussion, to reveal the issues of the emotional tribulation. And explain last night's events. Lu Daoist. Xiaoxia went to the front courtyard and found Lu Changxing. Because of last night's events, the sight of Lu Changxing caused a faint ripple in her heart. However, after a whole night of tempering her state of mind, she didn't show any unusual signs. Xiao Daoist, let's have breakfast before setting off, Lu Changxing said casually. He didn't bring up last night's events. After all, it was somewhat awkward to discuss such matters. The best approach was to act as if nothing had happened. It's not about that. I have something to discuss with Lu Daoist, Xiaoxia said, shaking her head slightly and speaking earnestly. Seeing her serious expression, Lu Changxing knew she must have some important matter to discuss. Perhaps this was also why she came looking for him last night. Lu Changxing immediately escorted Xiaoxia to a secluded side hall. He inquired, "May I know what Xiao Daoist would like to discuss?" Lu Daoist must have noticed a clear change in me compared to 10 years ago, Xiaoxia said softly, looking at Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing nodded. And she took the initiative to say that she was planning to travel without a particular destination in mind and asked him to accompany her. The goal was to try to overcome her emotional tribulation through him and thus make a breakthrough. Now that she was being upfront, she likely wanted him to do something. As a good friend, helping Xiao Daoist with her troubles is naturally my unquestionable duty. I'm not sure how Xiao Daoist intends to undergo this emotional tribulation, but if I can be of help, Lu would naturally help. Since the other party had put it that way, Lu Changxing felt it would not be good to refuse and thus spoke. As for this matter of emotional tribulation, I am not very clear about it myself. Originally, when I was beside Lu Daoist, my thoughts would become disordered, and my cultivation technique would operate automatically. Therefore, I would like to ask Lu Daoist to cooperate with me in an attempt, but last night, Xiaoxia, with a cold expression, seemed as ethereal as a fairy from the Moon Palace, her demeanor supremely pure and holy as she explained her situation. After all, when she decided to practice the supreme forgetful love technique, she possessed the resolve to ask about the way in the morning and be prepared to die in the evening, determination. Now that the way lay in front of her, she naturally wouldn't be coy like a young girl. After hearing Xiaoxia's words, Lu Changxing was momentarily stunned. Although he had thoughts about Xiaoxia, he had suppressed these ideas for the time being due to her status and identity. But what she was talking about now, this undergoing of emotional tribulation, was entirely a proactive offering. In such a situation, saying he would cooperate was possible, and maybe with some deeper persuasion, he could even get Xianxia to have a child with him before she returned to Qingyun sect. But Lu Changxing did not harbor these thoughts. The identity of a nascent soul immortal disciple made him apprehensive. Regarding this matter of emotional tribulation, Lu also has some views, feeling that it may not necessarily require my involvement. Xiao Daoist can do this. Lu Changxing pondered for a moment before speaking tactfully. If it were anyone else offering such an opportunity, he, Lu's someone, would naturally not refuse. But Xiaoxia's status and identity were something he couldn't afford to provoke. Acting on it would not bring him much advantage, and it was likely to cause him endless embarrassment. Therefore, if she could resolve this emotional tribulation on her own, owing him a favor would be ideal. Is that really possible? Xiaoxia, after a moment of silence upon hearing Lu Changsheng's words, asked. Evidently, her heart was not entirely calm either. After all, her supreme forgetful love technique would be effected in front of Lu Changsheng. She couldn't achieve a state of absolute detachment. Xiao Daoist can give it a try. Lu Changxing handed her a soft cushioned meditation mat. Immediately, the plan for both to tour the marketplace was revised. Inside the room, Xiaoxia, with a cold countenance, sat cross-legged on a pink meditation mat. Suddenly her beautiful brows furrowed slightly. Then, on her cold and holy face, a hint of blush appeared, rendering her stunningly beautiful. The blush spread at a visible pace. It made her beautiful face flushed like the rosy clouds, her red lips slightly parted, and her breathing somewhat hurried. After a few breaths, the blush spread from her cheeks to her ears, making her delicate and lovely ears thoroughly red, and her snow-white, graceful neck also gradually reddened. The perfect and delicate body inside the fairy's moon-white dress also started to tremble slightly. The embroidered shoes covering her round and petite jade feet trembled lightly, restless and uneasy. A moment later, a suppressed heavenly sound emanated from the fairy's throat, causing her to furrow her brows in pain, then look befuddled, her red lips parted, as she collapsed to the ground. Huff! 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 Xiaoxia's bewitching eyes looked confusedly at the eaves, carefully observing the changes in her heart. In a daze, she realized the state of her heart at that moment, in that overwhelming, dreamlike instance, was somewhat similar to last night when she witnessed the scene that impacted her Dao heart. To break through illusions, one must control these emotions. Xiaoxia murmured to herself. She could feel that this method indeed helped her, bringing a hint of ease to her heart. It felt as if much of the irritability and stray thoughts regarding her cultivation breakthrough had diminished. Even her realm seemed to have loosened a bit. But it's still not enough. Xiaoxia operated her supreme forgetful love technique, her eyes cold and calm as she murmured to herself. Propping up her body with her fair arms, she straightened her dress, then Xiaoxia pushed open the room door and went out to find Lu Changxing. Bearing a few children shouldn't count as going against the Dao heart, right? Lu Changxing thought to himself, watching Xiaoxia make her vow. He nodded slightly and said to Xiaoxia, "How do you plan to start?" At these words, Xiaoxia blinked in surprise. She knew her emotional trial was related to the affections between men and women, her own desires, but how to begin, or what to do next, she found herself at a loss. After all, in this matter, she was truly clueless. The next moment, she saw Lu Changsheng's handsome face drawing closer, a warm, moist breath approached her lips and enveloped them. A blush like blooming snow lotuses crept onto Xiaoxia's face, her heart pounded furiously, wanting to push Lu Changxing away. But the surging shyness and desire within her, controlled by the supreme forgetful love technique, suppressed her instinctive reaction. Her eyelashes quivered as she hid her embarrassment, her face filled with bewilderment and helplessness, allowing him to take the lead. During the recent cultivation session, which nearly nullified the supreme forgetful love technique, her state of mind seemed to revert to her once genuine and lively self, her heartstrings beginning to quiver. She questioned herself, whether it was worth it to do this for the sake of cultivation. A trace of confusion flashed in Xiaoxia's eyes. She recalled joining the Qingyun sect, her master Yun Wanshang imparting the supreme forgetful love technique to her, and her own resolute choice of the supreme forgetful love technique without any hesitation. She remembered the years of hard cultivation, the leaving of the mountain for experience, and clarifying Lu Chengsheng's emotional calamity with him. She was acutely aware that all this was her own choice, following her true nature. It's worth it, all of it. Xiaoxia's eyes were clear, the confusion, retreat, and regret in her heart clearing away. As the supreme forgetful love technique circulated, her beautiful eyes became as cold as the moon. She murmured to herself, "I can certainly do it." Her cold and touching voice was very calm. Chapter 284, Yun Wanshang, could something have happened to Shiyu? But it revealed an unwavering determination. With the clarity of her Dao heart, she felt as if her realm had also loosened somewhat. In the following days, Lu Chengsheng and Xiaoxia did not venture out, but continued their cultivation practice within the residence. During these days, under the guidance of Lu Chengsheng, Xiaoxia's practice of the supreme forgetful love technique improved rapidly. She no longer closed her eyes and simply endured his verbal sparring, letting things happen, but would now slightly shyly collaborate a little. Although her proud chest still fluttered when caressed, it no longer caused the supreme forgetful love technique to lose its effect, and gradually she was able to control and restrain this surge of desire. Pitifully, this made things difficult for Lu Chengsheng. Initially, Lu Chengsheng thought he was merely helping a fairy with her practice, as if helping the future mother of his child. But once he truly assisted, this was not mere fairy cultivation, it was also a cultivation for himself. Thankfully he had his wives in the residence, otherwise, who could withstand it? While Lu Chengsheng was practicing with the fairy, at Qingyun sect, Kaiyun Peak, within a magnificent palace, Yun Wanshang was seated, engaged in alchemy. A green jade pill furnace, brimming with vitality and lush greenery, slowly rotated above her head. As a nascent soul immortal, she naturally knew some skills. In terms of alchemy, although not extremely profound, she was also a second-rank alchemist. Coalesce. As she formed hand seals, she sent a spiritual art towards the pill furnace. Elixir medicines flew out one by one from the pill furnace, landing in her hands. Out of 10 elixir medicines, half were dull and scorched, clearly failures. What's wrong with me today? My mental spirit is somewhat restless during alchemy. Could it be that something has happened to Shiyu? Yun Wanshang frowned slightly as she looked at the elixir medicines in her hand. Her first thought was whether her disciple, Xiaoxia, had encountered trouble. But through the soul guide on Xiaoxia's body, she knew that Xiaoxia was not in mortal danger. Immediately, a jade token appeared in her hand. This was an information-transmitting jade token, divided into a pair of master and subordinate tokens. Although it could not convey specific information, during its creation, one could inscribe general information for simple communication. Yun Wanshang used the master and subordinate communication tokens to reach out to Xiaoxia, inquiring about her situation. Within the Lu family residence, in a room of a courtyard, the sound of Walla Walla could be heard. His power far exceeded the Lu family ancestor, Chen family ancestor, Bai family ancestor, and Meng Xiaochan that he had encountered before. Humph. Xiaoxia's countenance paled slightly as the two artifacts she summoned were broken, and she let out a muffled groan. She took out a silver talisman from her storage bag and handed it to Lu Changxing. She quickly transmitted her voice, "Lu Daoist, this matter started because of me. He must be tracking me through some kind of technique. This is a second-rank escape talisman. It'll hold him off for a moment. You can use the talisman to escape from here," Xiaoxia said urgently. Practicing the supreme forgetful love technique helped her keep her mind calm even in the face of various crises. She knew that the young man in the red robe, a foundation-building great cultivator, was after her. This kind of encounter was certainly no coincidence. It was highly likely that the opponent possessed some secret technique that could find her. Thus, in this situation, it was extremely difficult for her to escape from the hands of a foundation-building great cultivator. She also didn't want to get Lu Changxing involved at this time. Lu Changxing did not take the talisman. He had such second-rank escape talismans himself. If he had wanted to escape, he could have used the talisman to do so during the first opportunity in the gap between their fights. But faced with this situation, leaving Xiaoxia behind and escaping alone was something he found rather difficult to do. Sigh, with this kind of nature, I'm really not suited for the cultivation world, for these times, he thought to himself. However, after tasting both the sweet and the savory, and she being the future mother of my children, I can't just stand by and do nothing, Lu Changxing sighed softly in his heart. He decided to fight back fiercely and see if he could save Xiaoxia. His boldness wasn't completely ungrounded. He had a certain confidence. He felt that if he truly gave it his all, he could take down a foundation-building enemy. Though this particular foundation builder was somewhat strong. Moreover, even if he was no match, he had the life-substituting talisman on him to cling to life. In the blink of an eye, with thoughts flashing through his mind, Lu Changxing made a decision, his palms subtly retracting into his sleeves. One hand held a talisman, the other gripped a talisman treasure emitting golden light. "Hurry up," Xiaoxia pressed, looking at Lu Changxing with some anxiety. She urged him to take the talisman and escape quickly. "Xiao Daoist, under these circumstances, how could I abandon you and leave?" Lu Changxing responded with a light chuckle. "At a time like this, still indulging in romantic sentiment? But make no mistake, you two are doomed not to become lovebirds on the run." The young man in the red robe's eyes flashed fiercely as he abruptly exclaimed. As for this, she did not question or care about it too much. After all, which cultivator does not have some fortune and secrets on them? But she never would have guessed that Lu Changxing had hidden his powers so deeply, producing a second-rank puppet and a talisman treasure unexpectedly. Especially when Lu Changxing activated the talisman treasure, with the aura of spiritual power surging around his body. It allowed her to approximately perceive that Lu Changxing's cultivation level and strength must be the same as hers, at qi refinement perfection. However, seeing that Lu Changxing had such strength and measures to escape on his own, yet chose to fight by revealing himself in order to save her, it made her heart flutter, spawning an inexplicable emotion. But at this moment, she did not pay attention to this feeling, taking out a golden talisman paper from her storage bag. Buzz buzz buzz. Xiaoxia stimulated the talisman paper with her spiritual power, causing a small golden sword to appear, emitting a terrifying might. This turned out to also be a talisman treasure. Huh! Another talisman treasure. The red-robed youth saw this, his eyes flickered, and his expression darkened. Before he acted, he had guessed that these qi refinement juniors would certainly have treasures to defend themselves. But he did not expect that there would be this additional complication. 2 qi refinement juniors, each possessing a talisman treasure. But they are just 2 qi refinement juniors, even with talisman treasures, how can they unleash their full power? The red-robed youth scoffed, smacked his belt, and a set of black armor appeared, which he put on. After all, even though it was just talk, the unleashed power of 2 talisman treasures could potentially injure him if he was careless. Roar roar roar. Meanwhile, the 9 evil pythons had already furiously charged right in front of Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing was fully focused on activating the golden brick talisman treasure when he saw this sight, his fingers squeezing an activated supreme talisman, a thunder talisman. At this moment, as he activated the golden brick talisman treasure and controlled the second-rank puppet, he found it difficult to use another second-rank talisman. Under his puppet control technique, the second-rank puppet, which was clashing head-on with the ghostly white flying sword, suddenly had all 5 javelins on its back shoot up into the sky. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, like thunder and lightning, they turned into 5 black bolts of lightning, and together they rushed toward the 9-headed evil python, fiercely and powerfully. Boom boom boom. Every one of the 5 javelins, each as powerful as a strike from someone of the Foundation establishment stage, collided with the 9-headed evil python, causing an explosive booming noise. But during this collision, Lu Changxing could distinctly feel that the middle-grade spirit stones within the puppet's core were being rapidly consumed, unable to keep up with the onslaught of the enemy's attacks. We must end this battle quickly. Lu Changxing also knew that in this situation, his side could not afford to drag the fight out. Every casual attack from his opponent forced him to use all his techniques. Looking up at the sky, where the golden brick now resembled a small mountain, Lu Changxing's mind shifted slightly. He poured his entire mental spirit and spiritual power into controlling the talisman treasure. Boom! The mountainous, radiant golden brick, with its heavy and pure aura, plummeted down towards the red-robed youth. Chi! Faced with the surging momentum of the falling golden brick, the youth dared not underestimate it and let out a low shout. The red phoenix pearl above his head spun rapidly, radiating intense red light, making the surroundings appear as if engulfed by a blazing cloud, rising to meet the golden brick bearing down like a formidable mountain. Rumble rumble. The 2 treasures collided, their might surging, locking the golden and red light in a standoff midair. And at that moment, Xiaoxia's talisman treasure, the golden little sword, also burst forth. This little golden sword, nearly pushed to its limit by Xiaoxia, displayed an incredible might and suddenly closed in on the red-robed youth. Chapter 288, Foundation Establishment Ambush, Treasure Bones Emerge. For the youth was combating the golden talisman treasure brick when he saw the small sword coming to kill him. He slapped his hand, and a puppet in the form of a tiger appeared. Pfft! In just a moment, the golden small sword pierced through the tiger puppet, shattering its core. But in that instant, the youth wielded a pair of blood-colored scissors from his hand, which transformed into a blood-colored flood dragon, colliding with the golden small sword. Clang clang clang. The golden small sword and the blood-colored flood dragon continuously clashed. At this moment, the youth in the red robe was somewhat strained facing the second-rank puppet and 2 talisman treasures. He saw that Xiaoxia was already at the end of her tether. Under the initial offensive and divine sense attack, her mental spirit had already been damaged. Now, as she desperately stimulated the talisman treasures, both her mental spirit and mana were barely holding on. He prepared to deal with Xiaoxia first, then handle Lu Changxing. With a flicker of his mental spirit, the sun-white flying sword entangled with the second-rank puppet suddenly turned and charged towards Xiaoxia. Daoist Xiao, be careful. Lu Changxing, upon seeing this, immediately shouted. He took control of the second-rank puppet to intercept the flying sword. However, after the 9-headed evil python was shattered, it regrouped, indomitable, forcing the puppet to block its way. Pfft! Xiaoxia's complexion turned pale as she saw the small sword coming to kill her. She bit her silver teeth, spitting fresh blood onto her ancient zither. Twang! Immediately, the ancient zither soared into the sky, its blood-stained strings plucked autonomously, emitting a sound like that of warhorses and ironclad soldiers, as wave after wave of sound wave blades were unleashed. Clang clang clang. The sun-white flying sword collided with the ancient zither, making Xiaoxia's face even paler. Daoist Lu, you must go quickly. Xiaoxia said aloud. She could see that even if Lu Changxing was hiding his strength, possessing a second-rank puppet and talisman treasures, this Foundation establishment great cultivator was not an ordinary one. They were no match for him. If they persisted, both of them would die here. After speaking, she fully stimulated her mental spirit and spiritual power, propelling the golden small sword to create an opportunity for Lu Changsheng. The sword emitted bursts of golden light around itself, and with a fierce slash, it cut a deep gash in the body of the blood-colored flood dragon, causing the spiritual artifact to revert to a blood-colored pair of scissors and fall from the sky. At that moment, the golden small sword also dimmed considerably but still charged towards the youth in the red robe. Humph. The youth in the red robe, seeing his spiritual artifact damaged, let out a cold snort and formed a hand seal. Black armor around him surged with a ghostly light, and at the same time, the blood-colored scissors flew up again, transforming into a blood-colored flood dragon, colliding with the golden small sword. But at this moment, the blood-colored flood dragon was clearly much dimmer than before. Lu Changsheng, watching this scene, also had an estimate of the youth in the red robe's strength. He knew the latter was also running low on strength. He propelled the talisman treasure golden brick with all his might while controlling the second-rank puppet to attack the youth in the red robe. The treasure bones in his chest were poised and ready. This was his last trump card. Damn it. The youth in the red robe, seeing the puppet coming to kill, also looked somewhat sullen and ugly. Lu Changsheng and Xianxia, although both were in the stage of qi refinement, summoned talisman treasures with incredibly astonishing power. Especially the golden light brick, which completely entangled his life-bound spiritual artifact, crazily draining the mana within his body. He gritted his teeth, formed a hand seal with both hands, and slapped his chest to use a secret technique. It allowed him, under such circumstances, to split a part of his mental spirit and mana to control his magic artifact. Clang clang clang. Immediately, a purple bell magic artifact appeared, gently swaying in the void and emitting a series of soul-stirring sounds. This sound made both Lu Changsheng and Xianxia unable to help but feel dazed, somewhat dizzy and swollen-headed. The young man clearly saw that both were fully controlling the talisman treasure, thus expending a great deal of their mental spirit. A disturbance would inevitably lead to an opening. Pfft! The second-rank puppet reached the young man in the red robe, and the black gold long knife in its hand slashed out explosively. The young man wasn't a body cultivator, so naturally he wouldn't forcibly resist such a close-range attack. An armor surrounded by dim light materialized a ghostly shield in front of him, blocking the strike. The purple bell continued to ding, unsettling the mind, causing Xianxia, who was barely holding on, to completely faint. Now's the moment. Lu Changsheng's eyes flashed fiercely, knowing that the young man in the red robe had also reached his limit. Now, without Xiaoxia's help, he couldn't delay any longer. If the opponent had the chance to recover, there would be no opportunity. He immediately patted the spiritual pet bag and summoned the six-winged golden silkworm. This six-winged golden silkworm had been raised for almost 2 years now. But regardless of its size or appearance, there was no difference from when he first obtained it. It was still in the larval stage. However, at this moment, as long as it could be of use, that was enough. Lu Changsheng had the six-winged golden silkworm prepare in secret. Then, while putting all his strength into stimulating the golden light brick, he unleashed the treasure bones that he had nourished for many years with the black dragon magical bead. Roar roar roar, in an instant, dragon roars resonated through the void. Straight from Lu Changsheng's chest, a tide of dark light spread unceasingly, like a rolling river with surging waves, emitting a terrifyingly powerful aura. What kind of technique is this, and how does it have the aura of core formation? And how can this youngster, with only qi refinement strength, having already stimulated one talisman treasure, still unleash such a powerful technique? The young man in the red robe screamed, somewhat panicked. Boom! The next moment, from Lu Changsheng's chest emerged a flood dragon enveloped in glistening black light and shrouded in black mist, giving off a bizarre and evil roar as it emerged. What on earth is this technique? This youngster is clearly just a minor qi refinement cultivator. The young man in the red robe stared at the menacing, roaring flood dragon, his expression also becoming somewhat vacant. Not understanding what was happening before his eyes. Why, while fully controlling a talisman treasure, could he still unleash a technique with a forceful presence not weaker than that of a Foundation establishment aura? Roar, roar, roar. Before he could think further, the rolling black mist and the roaring evil spirit of the flood dragon made the young man in the red robe feel his body sluggish and the spiritual light in his mental spirit dim. The black dragon magical bead, upon initial activation, burst forth with black light capable of suppressing the flesh and corrupting the soul. This spirit of the evil flood dragon naturally possessed such an effect. The young man, already in a state of deadlock, couldn't withstand the soul of the evil flood dragon at all and was directly engulfed and devoured by the approaching black mist. Chapter 289, 100,000 Spirit Stones, The Change in Xianxia. _1, Rumble. The evil Jiao's soul engulfed and drowned the young man in the red robe. A terrifying radiance filled the void, causing the entire space to boom and explode. Ah! A shrill scream sounded amidst the waves. Huff! This strike, lit by the explosive energy of the treasure bones, also made Lu Changsheng's face somewhat pale, with a faint pain in his chest. Through the red bead that had clashed hard against the golden light brick, he knew that the young man in red was not yet completely dead. Go! Lu Changsheng issued an order to the six-winged golden silkworm, lest the opponents still had some strength left. At the same time, he continued to control the golden light brick with his mental spirit. At this moment, he could clearly feel the might of the red bead resisting the golden light brick had greatly diminished, falling steadily. This indicated the dire situation of the young man in red, who was unable to resist. Boom! 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 As the golden light brick continued suppressing the red phoenix pearl, a blood-red light burst out from the soul of the evil Jiao. It was indeed the young man in red. By now his black armor was ragged, his hair disheveled, his appearance was utterly wretched. Ah, you wait for me, this grudge, the young man in red ranted bitterly, attempting to escape using a secret technique. But before he could finish speaking, the hovering golden light brick came crashing down like a mountain. Puff! Simultaneously, a golden line shot out like an arrow, piercing his forehead, leaving a bloody hole. It was the six-winged golden silkworm. The next moment, the golden light brick also thundered down, pressing both the red phoenix pearl and the young man in red toward the ground below. Upon seeing this, Lu Changsheng embraced Xiaoxia's delicate body and, piloting the flying artifact, descended swiftly. Rumble. With a thunderous roar, the golden light brick pinned the young man directly onto the mountainous terrain, causing the ground to shake. Phew, truly fitting for a Foundation establishment great cultivator, so hard to kill. The treasure bones I've nurtured for years are not the least bit weaker than a full-force strike from a talisman treasure, yet he almost got away. Lu Changsheng could sense that the opponent's vitality had nearly extinguished with the six-winged golden silkworm strike. But just to be safe, he had followed up with a blow from the golden light brick. Through the golden light brick, he could detect that the young man in red pinned underneath was thoroughly devoid of life. However, to be on the safe side, Lu Changsheng still took out 3 superior-grade talismans and 1 supreme talisman, setting them up around the golden light brick. After he finished, Lu Changsheng slightly stirred his mental spirit, allowing the golden light brick to rise slowly. Upon seeing the mangled corpse within the large pit, Lu Changsheng finally felt at ease. He retracted the golden light that had engulfed the brick, which had become as large as a small hill, and watched it shrink, reverting to the form of a talisman and flying back into his hand. But now, this talisman treasure was quite dim, its paper even appearing somewhat damaged. This talisman treasure is probably going to be completely scrapped after one more use. Lu Changsheng looked at the dim golden light brick talisman treasure in his hand and mused inwardly. This talisman treasure had been used by him multiple times, already depleting much of its power. The recent battle, though brief, had been greatly taxing due to his full-powered activation. If this Foundation establishment great cultivator was a pauper, then this would be quite the loss for me. Lu Changsheng gazed into the large crater made by the golden light brick, at the torn body within it, and exhaled lightly. However, the likelihood of this was slim. The red bead, the pale white sword, and the blood-colored scissors alone were of considerable value. Lu Changxing did not ponder long to avoid drawing others to the site of the recent battle. He embraced Xiaoxia's tender body, collected the young man in red's mangled corpse, and quickly gathered the scattered treasures around before swiftly departing. After an hour, Lu Changxing found a cave in the mountain range. He gently placed Xiaoxia down inside. From his storage bag, he took out the heavenly canopy 5 elements formation and set it up. This formation had the effects of trapping enemies and isolating aura, very practical, and was always on Lu Changxing's person. After setting up the formation, Lu Changxing took a recovery elixir medicine from the storage bag and used a healing talisman on him, which made him feel much better. He then checked Xiaoxia's condition. She seemed to have just suffered damage to her mental spirit and had overconsumed her spiritual power, nothing too serious. After making a preliminary assessment, Lu Changxing passed a healing pill into her lips. He then applied another healing talisman to her. He immediately saw her pale complexion improve considerably. The biggest difference between the Qi refinement realm and the foundation establishment stage, aside from the qualitative change in spiritual power and mana, is divine sense. Foundation establishment cultivators give birth to divine sense, which affords great convenience in both combat and cultivation. If it weren't for the peach blossom goo shielding me from divine sense attacks, I fear I would have suffered damage to my mental spirit just like Xiaoxia. Lu Changxing looked at Xiaoxia's form and realized the most undefendable aspect of encountering foundation establishment while being in the Qi refinement stage. Even if you have a magic artifact, defending against divine sense attacks is almost impossible. If he didn't possess the peach blossom goo, he might have been affected as well. Nevertheless, it was only now that Lu Changxing discovered the peach blossom goo had this effect. Immediately, he closed his eyes to introspect, inspecting the condition of the peach blossom goo between his eyebrows. Though it seemed somewhat listless, it wasn't of much concern. This was normal. After all, it was a divine spirit goo. And the growth of the peach blossom goo was remarkably fast. Under his flourishing peach blossom luck, it had grown to the extreme limit of the first transformation. If his cultivation level did not restrict it, it could have advanced to the second transformation. Seeing that Xiaoxia wouldn't awaken anytime soon, Lu Changxing stripped the storage bag and storage belt from the young man in red. He began sorting through the spoils of the battle. I hope they yield a substantial return. Lu Changxing looked at the storage belt and storage bag with a hint of anticipation. Chapter 290, 100,000 Spirit Stones, the change in Xiaoxia. After all, the young man in the red robe didn't seem like an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator. One would think he couldn't be too poor. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, the 6-winged golden silkworm was flying around Lu Changxing. Its wings, thin as cicadas, fluttered, emitting a bloodthirsty aura. Go ahead. Lu Changxing naturally understood what the 6-winged golden silkworm meant and chuckled lightly. He hadn't burned the young man in the red robe to ashes, precisely to leave the body for the 6-winged golden silkworm. After all, this 6-winged golden silkworm fed on blood. To it, the blood essence of a foundation establishment great cultivator like the young man in the red robe was naturally a great tonic. Having received Lu Changxing's permission, the 6-winged golden silkworm immediately burrowed into the young man's body and began to feast greedily. Isn't this a bit too much like the practices of the demonic path? Lu Changxing watched the actions of the 6-winged golden silkworm and smacked his lips. Very soon, he shook his head and said, but it's just resource utilization after all. If I didn't feed it to the 6-winged golden silkworm, I'd have to burn it to ashes. Besides, this is far from what the demon path cultivators do. I read in a book before that some demonic path cultivators use any resource they can for cultivation, be it humans, demon beasts, or the souls of all living beings. Things like human skin books, white bone arrows, pools of blood and flesh, myriad soul banners, and even human emotions like joy, anger, and hatred can be used for cultivation. Lu Changxing clicked his tongue in amazement. He had roughly read about the differences between the righteous path and the demonic path in books before. Although the descriptions weren't very detailed, he had a general idea. Demonic path cultivators are more extreme in their cultivation techniques and behaviors, showing less humanity for the sake of advancement. This consequently leads to some differences in the speed of cultivation and breaking through realms. But on the whole, there isn't much difference between cultivators of the righteous path and those of the demonic path. My cheap brother-in-law seems to have followed the demonic path, and I have no idea about his current situation or if he's still alive. Lu Changxing suddenly remembered Chu Zhenqian's brother, Chu Changge. After all these years, he wondered how his cheap brother-in-law, who had entered the demonic path, was faring. After all, life wasn't easy for demonic path cultivators in Jianghu country. Without further musing, Lu Changxing began to check the storage bag. So many spirit stones, materials. Lu Changxing immediately saw a pile of spirit stones and materials inside, and his face lit up with surprise. Even without counting in detail, he could tell at a glance that this was no small number of spirit stones. Among them were many lustrous middle-grade spirit stones. What's this? Lu Changxing then looked at a crystal porcelain bottle. Inside was half a bottle of red crystal granules, resplendent like glazed glass. Just by the quality of the exquisite spirit bottle and the appearance of the crystals, Lu Changxing could tell they were no mundane objects. Opening the porcelain bottle, he immediately felt an intense, scorching energy. Each grain of crystal shone with a precious light. Could this be something like the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, as recorded in the books? If this thing really is the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, then its value is at least 50 to 60,000 spirit stones. Lu Changxing looked at the crystal porcelain bottle, his face filled with a smile, and he put it into his storage bag. A regular foundation establishment spiritual object might cost 2 to 3,000 spirit stones. But for a core formation spiritual object, the price increases 20-fold. And they are priceless on the market. Lu Changxing continued his inventory. Seeing ordinary materials and magic artifacts didn't stir much emotion in him. Red Phoenix True Scripture, a peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. Seems like there's something worthwhile after all, to possess a peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. However, the technique is incomplete, only cultivable to the core formation stage, but I can study the 2 secret techniques recorded inside later. Lu Changxing found several technique jade slips in the storage bag. After a brief glance, there were several high-grade cultivation techniques and the inheritance of 100 arts of cultivation. Only the Red Phoenix True Scripture notably piqued Lu Changxing's interest. Is this a magic treasure embryo? Lu Changxing saw a small black-red cauldron among the items, examining it in his hand. This small cauldron had only a rough outline of a cauldron shape. Neither the design nor the patterns were sculpted yet, resembling an unrefined embryo. But from inspecting the material of the small cauldron and the aura it emitted, even the worldly Lu Changxing faintly sensed that this was a magic treasure. This kind of appearance made Lu Changxing guess it was a magical treasure embryo. As far as Lu Changxing knew, most cultivators' life-bound magic treasures are made from some rare and precious materials, which they refine themselves. They then shape it into an embryo, and gradually nurture and imbue it into a fledgling form, eventually turning it into a magic treasure. This has an advantage, as one could control the fledgling form of the magic treasure in the late stage of foundation establishment. And by nurturing the magic treasure embryo well in advance, one could let the magic treasure take shape immediately upon reaching core formation, significantly increasing its power. Could it be that this young man in the red robe is a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment? Otherwise, why would he have core formation spiritual objects and a magical treasure embryo? Lu Changxing glanced at the corpse that was being drained of blood by the 6-winged golden silkworm and speculated. After all, how could an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator have such rare items? However, sifting through the spoils made Lu Changxing somewhat relieved. For he had also found in the red-robed young man's storage bag 6 pieces of supreme talismans of the second rank, as well as heavenly thunder pearls, white bone arrows, and other treasures. It became clear that the latter actually had quite a few trump cards. If he had made a determined attempt to take their lives from the beginning of their encounter with him and Xiaoxia, neither she nor Lu Changxing would have had the chance to retaliate. There wouldn't have been any time to employ talisman treasures to suppress him. The same principle applies, even when a lion hunts a rabbit, it uses all its strength, Lu Changxing thought to himself. Otherwise, one might capsize in the gutter unexpectedly. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.